Chapter 1421. If they were a couple, why was the child already 7 years old? Why didn't they hold a wedding ceremony? Moreover, Muyaja and her were both unmarried. He had checked this before. He had investigated Muyaja's background. He was not married and did not have a wife. He only had a son. He had always protected his son well, so he did not find a photo of him. However, the information showed that the child was also 7 years old. It was hard not to associate him with Yu. He remembered that Lisa had brought back a child who looked exactly like Yu. This child was probably the child by Muyaja's side. Lisa had said that the child and Yu were identical twins. Since Muyaja and his sister had 2 children, and one of the children had been acknowledged by the Mu family, what was the relationship between them? Secret lover. Gong Jia was furious when he thought of this word. If she was really Muyaja's secret lover, he would not allow his sister to be with this man. Not to mention the feud between the Gong and Mu families, he would not allow his sister to be wronged because of this secret identity. However, judging from his sister's attitude, it did not seem as simple as a secret lover. At first, he suspected that Yu might be Muyaja's biological son. However, when he saw Muyaja's photo, even if he wanted to doubt it, he did not have the right to do so. The father and son looked very similar. This level of similarity was even greater than the similarity between Yu and Yunshishir. One look and one could tell that they were father and son. Then, what happened when Yunshishir was 18 years old? Were they together? 18 years old was still young and innocent. She should have been enjoying her carefree youth. Why did she have a child at such a young age? So early. Did something happen? Or, was she forced or bullied? Gong Jia clenched his fists when he thought of this possibility. He wanted to punch Muyaja into pieces. Damn it, the more he thought about it, the more frustrated he became. In Gong Jia's heart, his hatred for the Mu family had long been integrated into his bones and blood. It was hard to get rid of it. Since he was young, he had been influenced by the Gong family and knew how much his father hated the Mu family. Similarly, he hated the Mu family to the core. Hence, when he was caught off guard by the relationship between Yunshishir and Muyaja, he felt lost and did not know how to face the man whom he should address as brother-in-law. This man's blood have that sinner's blood. Sinner's blood. Damn it. He could not accept this fact. Even though he maintained a facade of not knowing the truth in front of Yunshishir, he was still conflicted deep down. Gong Jia stroked his fringe anxiously, his deep-set eyes hidden in the shadows. Yunshishir's schedule was busy again. The casting of Lethal Beauty was almost done. However, for the sake of confidentiality, the 4 main leads and several important supporting actors and actresses were kept a secret. Even Yunshishir did not know who would be playing the roles. She only knew that Lin Ji and Hua Jin would be playing the roles. As for the other supporting roles, the dust had not settled yet. They were still in the midst of casting. Chapter 1422. In this smokeless war, whoever had a strong background would be able to show their faces in this drama. It was a realistic and cruel problem. Yunshishir suddenly realized how terrifying Qin Zhou's methods were. She had just debuted, but she was able to secure important roles in 2 gold medal production teams, The Green Apple and Lethal Beauty. She was well aware that, putting aside her ability, Qin Zhou's methods were also indispensable. If not for Qin Zhou and Lin Fengtian's support, she might not have been able to successfully act in The Green Apple. Similarly, in the production team of Lethal Beauty, Qin Zhou was even more impressive. He had almost taken the lead role for her. Unfortunately, she loved supporting roles more and wanted to challenge this vicious female supporting role. Qin Zhou was often disappointed. However, Yunshishir understood that this was the decision she wanted and she would not regret it. Acting was not just a job, it was also her interest. She was excited to challenge every role that had tension. After the casting of Lethal Beauty, there would be an opening ceremony and she would have to prepare to enter the production team. However, before that, she had to prepare for The Love Diary. This was one of the more important parts of her script. The Love Diary was a reality show on Qingguang's satellite TV about imaginary love. In the show, popular stars formed imaginary lovers and went on an imaginary date show. After the first episode of the show was aired, the first group of imaginary couples quickly became a popular first-year reality show. Gu Xingze and Yun Shishir were the second set of imaginary lovers. The production team had great ambitions and expectations for this set of lovers and saw them as the absolute guarantee of ratings. The script for the reality show had been sent to Yun Shishir's email 2 days ago. Qin Zhou told her to go back and study it seriously. He also sent people to train her to make a last-minute effort to cultivate her sense of variety. It was a reality show. It was not enough to just have good looks. They had to create topics, gimmicks, and laughs. Therefore, it was a test of an artiste's sense of artistry. The moment Yun Shishir received the script, she was in a bad mood. The thick stack of scripts made her scalp tingle. She flipped through a few pages. The production team had carefully divided the key points for her. They were very considerate. The Love Diary was divided into 4 units. The first unit was about the heartbeat of first love. In this unit, the 2 artists who were supposed to be a couple first met and started the process of getting to know each other. The script for this unit was especially thick. Of course, even though it was a reality show, the characters were set by the production team. In this reality show, Yun Shishir had to play the role of an innocent and kind schoolbelle. In short, there was only one word to describe her: silly, naive, and sweet. Silly and sweet, she was already the mother of 2 children, but the production team actually had such a bad taste to give her such a persona. Then, he took a look at Gu Xing's character profile, the healer and warm-hearted man-healer. Yun Shishir remained expressionless, thinking back to Gu Xing's usual cold expression, this, just treat it as an idle drama. However, before the show started recording, something terrifying happened. Yun Shishir received a threatening letter. It was not that she had not received threatening letters before. In the past, when there were rumors about her and Gu Xingze on Weibo, she had received many threatening letters from Gu Xingze's fans. There were countless of them. Chapter 1423. Some were very uncreative, such as sending razor blades. Some purposely photoshopped her photo into a posthumous photo, clipped it with a chrysanthemum, and wantonly insulted her in the letter. Some even threatened to perish together with her if she did not leave Gu Xingze. She glanced at them and threw them all into the trash can. Initially, when she received the threatening letters, she was still a little afraid and felt her hair stand on end. However, with the endless number of threatening letters, she gradually became numb. Even when she received another threatening letter, she would throw it away without looking at it. However, this threatening letter was a little different. The threatening letter was first handed to her. She could not hold back her curiosity and opened it to take a look. However, just as she opened the letter, she was surprised to smell a strong scent of blood. She glanced at the letter and saw that it was written with blood. It was a letter written in blood. It was really a letter written in blood. The words on the letter were written in dried blood. Every stroke was written with a force that penetrated the back of the paper. Yun Shishir, you be *tch. You're just a bitch in heat, be *tch. If you continue to pester Xingze, you'll be hit by a car, struck by lightning, or torn apart by 5 horses. Son of a b *tch, your whole family will be cremated. Xingze doesn't like you at all. He belongs to our galaxy and doesn't belong to you. Leave him immediately, or else you'll be disfigured by sulfuric acid. All kinds of insults were written on the letter. There were even threats to splash Yun Shishir with sulfuric acid to disfigure her. Mushi was so frightened that her hand trembled and her face turned pale. The letter fluttered to the ground. Yun Shishir happened to pass by and saw the letter in her hand. She shuddered in fear and bent down to pick up the letter that had fallen to the ground. Mushi could not stop her in time and had already scanned through the letter. The moment she saw the words "whole family will be cremated," her face turned ashen. Her eyes were filled with anger. She was furious. She crumpled the letter into a ball and threw it into the trash can. Her chest heaved violently, unable to calm down. This is too much. How can this be? It's fine if you threaten me, but you even cursed my family. Yun Shishir was so angry that her whole body trembled. Her eyes were red and filled with tears. While she felt wronged, she also felt unusually angry. Mushi carefully observed her expression and said with heartache, "Shishir, don't take it to heart. These people are brainless fans and don't think before they speak. How can I not take it to heart?" Yun Shishir retorted angrily, "This person is too much. She even cursed my family to be cremated. She's too uncultured. She had purposely written her name as Corpse Cloud, and insulted her as a bitch in heat. Anyone who saw others cursing them like that would be infuriated. She hadn't reached the stage where she could remain calm even after being insulted like this. What was even more unbearable was that this person actually cursed her entire family to be cremated. She was very... as she was, a person's people as her, as. She was already used to people cursing her, but she couldn't stand it when people cursed her family. Chapter 14:24. This is too much, it's really too much. Yun Shishir was so angry that her face turned red. She clenched her fists so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She quickly helped Yun Shishir to the sofa and sat her down, comforting her. "Shishir, don't be angry. We're about to start recording the show. If you're so angry that your face wrinkles, it won't be easy for you to put on makeup." Mushi deliberately teased her, but Yun Shishir remained unmoved. She sat stiffly on the sofa with her hands on her knees clenched tightly. Her face seemed to have been painted white and was abnormally pale. Seeing this, Mushi sighed with heartache. She poured a cup of warm water and handed it to her. She slowly said, "Shishir, actually, as a public figure and an artist, such things will happen more often in the future. You should train yourself to have a stronger mentality. As a public figure, you'll be facing malicious speculation, slander, gossip, and even threats from all directions every day and every moment. There are so many people in this world, and not everyone is kind. Besides, humans are selfish, aren't they? Gu Xingze has a lot of fans. Just the registered fans on the official website alone have reached 100 million, breaking the Guinness Book of Records. Those that haven't been recorded have yet to be counted. With such a large base and such a large fan base, there will definitely be a few people with malicious intentions." She spoke step by step. Yun Shishir listened quietly, and her body gradually became less stiff. Mushi continued. "Shishir, the reason why you're facing so many malicious speculations and slander is because you're outstanding. Sometimes, an outstanding person will emit a dazzling light that stings the eyes of others. So, you don't have to take this matter to heart. I'll get someone to investigate who sent this letter." "No need." Yun Shishir suddenly forced a smile. "There's no need." Just as Mushi said, there was really no need to pay attention to such malicious people. Could it be that after a person was bitten by a mad dog, he would still stupidly bite back? She regained her spirit and said lightly, "Ask Ding Ning to do my makeup." She smiled. "Okay." After comforting Yun Shishir for a while, she hurriedly went out to find Ding Ning to do her makeup. In preparation for the filming of The Love Diary, the production team specially emphasized that they had to give Yun Shishir a pure and beautiful look and create the image of the nation's campus belle. Coincidentally, with the release of The Green Apple, the production team could also bask in the popularity of the movie. After Yoon Shusher was done with her makeup, she changed into a pure dress and got ready to record the show. She bumped into Gu Xingze in the corridor. In this episode, Gu Xingze wore a snow-white shirt and looked like the nation's most handsome boy. Yoon Shusher couldn't help but smile when she thought of the character in the script, a warm and caring guy. His attire fit his character very well. Gu Xingze was slightly stunned when he saw her, but he quickly regained his composure. "Have you memorized the script?" he asked in a low voice, his gaze gentle. Yoon Shusher nodded and then said with a depressed look, "I thought that reality shows are all about me acting as myself. I didn't expect that I have to follow the script. Every line is pre-written." "If possible, you can also improvise," Gu Xingze said. Chapter 1425. I rarely take part in reality shows. Even if I do, I don't want to memorize the script. Gu Xingze paused and added, "It's very boring." "Then, you don't want to follow the script?" Gu Xingze laughed and said, "I just need to take a look at it. Just one look and I can roughly guess the direction of the script. As for the rest, I just have to improvise on the spot." Yoon Shusher was taken aback. She sighed inwardly. He was indeed a natural-born best actor. Just one look at the script and he could improvise on the spot according to his character. "Get ready for the filming," Gu Xingze said. He then went into the dressing room to do his hair. Yoon Shusher walked to the filming location. At this moment, the set was being set up. The first segment, First Love's Heartbeat. The filming location was a tastefully decorated cafe. In this segment, according to the script, she and Gu Xingze would meet for the first time. They would get to know each other and interact with each other. For example, they would cook desserts, cakes, and coffee together to create a loving afternoon tea. This was a very romantic segment. Yoon Shusher felt a little indignant when she saw this scene. When would Mu Yaja be able to create romantic surprises for her? Apart from that one time at Hushin Island, when he created a romantic date for her, there seemed to be nothing else. He was really a man who did not understand romance. Men. Yoon Shusher sighed inwardly. In fact, she really hoped that she could take part in this segment with Mu Yaja. And not with Gu Xingze. She did not have any feelings for Gu Xingze at all. It was really difficult for her to take part in such a reality show with him and act as if they were in love. Did Mu Yaja know that she was taking part in this reality show with Gu Xingze? If the program was broadcasted and he saw it, this man would definitely be extremely jealous. Yoon Shusher snorted coldly in her heart. She really wanted the program to be broadcast as soon as possible so that he could see what a textbook example of a warm and caring man was like. Be jealous, be jealous. She could not wait for him to be jealous. What an emotionless ice block. Unknowingly, half an hour had passed. After the set was completed, the director announced the official start of the filming. The Love Diary, Scene 1, First Love, Heartbeat, Action. According to the script, the two of them would meet at a cafe for the first time. According to the script of the show, both of them had prepared small gifts for each other. Gu Xingze had prepared a limited edition crystal necklace for her and he personally put it around her neck. Yoon Shusher, on the other hand, followed the script and prepared a box of failed cakes. The reason why it was called a failure was because the cake was not made well and was a little burnt. This small prop was prepared by the production team. According to the script, Yoon Shusher wanted to prepare a handmade cake for him for their first meeting. Unfortunately, it was her first time making it, so she had no experience. Not only did she burn her hand, but the cake also failed to cook. She shyly took the cake and said to Gu Xingze with a look of regret, "Because it's my first time making a cake, so, it seems like it failed." The camera fell on her hand. She even had a band-aid on her finger. Gu Xingze opened the gift box. What appeared on camera was a cake that could not have been any worse. Chapter 14:26. The cameraman zoomed in on Yunshishir's guilty and shy face again and gave a close-up. Gu Xingze, on the other hand, reached out and gently dipped his fair, jade-like fingertips into the cake. He put it in his mouth and tasted it. His lips curled into a gentle smile as his starry eyes fell on her bashful face. "Thank you. The cake is delicious. I like it very much." As soon as he said that, Yunshishir was surprised and in disbelief. "It's obvious that I failed," she mumbled in a daze. Gu Xingze, however, did not take it to heart. He picked up a small piece of cake and took a bite. His face was full of contentment and tenderness. "It's very sweet." Yunshishir immediately said embarrassedly, "Are you comforting me?" "No. It must be very bad. Some parts of it are burnt. If you think it's bad, don't force yourself. I'll feel guilty." Gu Xingze looked up and looked at her affectionately. "As long as it's made by you, I like it very much." Yunshishir was stunned. Gu Xingze said seriously, "I'll finish it all." The recording process progressed step by step. After a short conversation, the two of them went backstage and started to make the desserts and coffee. The process was, of course, to create an ambiguous and romantic scene. In one scene, Yunshishir was standing at the kitchen counter and stirring the egg yolk seriously. Gu Xingze suddenly hugged her from behind and held her hand as they stirred. This scene was very romantic. If post-production was added, it would be as beautiful as an exquisite music video. Gu Xingze half-hugged Yunshishir and held her hand seriously as they stirred the egg yolks together. Yunshishir, on the other hand, lowered her face shyly. Her cheeks were pink and she was blushing. She was obviously shy. After making the desserts, it was time to enjoy them. The desserts made by Yunshishir and Gu Xingze were naturally inedible. For the sake of the show's effect, the desserts were made to taste terrible. The production crew served the desserts that they had prepared beforehand and presented them to the two of them before they continued filming. In this scene, the two of them were feeding each other. Gu Xingze scooped up a spoonful of dessert and brought it to Yunshishir's mouth. Yunshishir cursed silently as she acted. She didn't know how many threatening letters she would receive after the post-production of the reality show was completed. Gu Xingze's fans must send her razor blades. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but feel her hair stand on end. During the recording process, Gu Xingze was in his best state. Every look and expression in his eyes were perfect, portraying the image of a warm and caring man. On the other hand, Yunshishir played the role of a pure and innocent schoolgirl very well. The two of them were like lovers who had fallen in love at first sight and had just confirmed their relationship. Every moment that they spent together, it was as if pink bubbles were emitting from them. It was very much like first love. However, Gu Xingze's acting was so realistic and on point that even Yunshishir, who was sitting in front of him, couldn't tell if it was real or not. Was he acting or was he revealing his true feelings? Especially when he looked at her affectionately, the hidden tenderness in the depths of his deep eyes seemed to be on the verge of bursting out. Chapter 14:27. Yunshishir could not help but be startled. For a moment, her heart was beating like thunder because of his affectionate gaze. Gu Xingze suddenly looked up and asked with a gentle smile, "Do you like music?" Yunshishir nodded, "I like it very much." "Then let me sing a song for you, okay?" Gu Xingze asked. Yunshishir's face was filled with surprise. Can I? I specially prepared a song for you. It's a song by Lin Tian Wang. I want to sing it for you." Yunshishir clapped her hands and said with a pink face, "All right." The setting was a coffee shop. In the coffee shop, there was a very romantic music stage. On the stage was a tripod piano. Gu Xingze slowly sat down in front of the piano. For some reason, when he sat in front of the tripod piano, his gentle and elegant side profile instantly sparkled like stars, and his elegant temperament was about to come out. No wonder it was said that Gu Xingze was born to be the movie king, and he was also the prince of love songs who was endowed with a soul by the heavens. He lowered his head slightly, and his gentle and delicate side profile fell into her eyes, causing ripples of tenderness to appear. He raised his hand, and his fair hands landed on the black and white piano keys. They were slender and beautiful. Every finger of his beautiful hand seemed to be carved out of jade. He was born to be an outstanding pianist. He turned his face slightly and looked deeply at Yun Shishir. With just this glance, Yun Shishir was completely stunned. Her heart felt as if it had been stabbed by something, because she could clearly see the tenderness in his eyes. This tenderness was not an act. It was so real. Her heart suddenly began to ache. Gu Xingze slowly played. Along with the tinkling sound of the piano, a gentle and extremely magnetic voice flowed out like flowing water. Love yourself well, and someone will love you. This is an optimistic statement. The look of happiness makes me feel so. Really can't find an adjective. The silence is hiding the overflowing passion. Only the particle is left. There is a kind of steadiness when you call my name. He played and sang affectionately. Every word seemed to be engraved into his soul. When people heard it, their scalps immediately went numb and goosebumps appeared all over their bodies. His voice was so gentle and pleasant. When he sang to the emotional part, he gently lowered his eyes, frowned slightly, and his thin lips slowly opened and closed. Coupled with the sad and affectionate sound of the piano, it actually made people have the urge to cry. The position of the fallen leaves compose a poem. Time is passing, our story. This is the first time. Let me see that love can be generous and selfish. You are my keyword. I am not sure love is the best way. Is a verb or noun. I want to tell you the most asterisk, but I forget the words. Gathering and parting always, sometimes for crying and laughing, sometimes. I am not afraid of the subtext. Gu Xingze's mellow voice, tinged with a hint of laziness, was transmitted through the condenser microphone. There was no need for post-processing, it was already very textured. Someone once commented that Gu Xingze's voice had a magical power. Just hearing it once was enough to mesmerize and make one's heart go numb. This song was an extremely sad love song. It was the song that Lin Tianwang performed at the Golden Melody Awards. It was sung by Gu Xingze, but it had a unique style. The audience quieted down. Even the director team was deeply immersed in this song. It was so good. This was also why Gu Xingze was the well-deserved king of singers at the Golden Melody Awards, and no one dared to object. His voice was too perfect. Chapter 14:28. This song was not part of the script at all. It was Gu Xingze's arrangement. Even the director did not expect him to prepare a song for Yun Shishir. However, the recording would definitely turn out well. Yun Shishir listened quietly and could not help but fall into a trance. Looking at the superstar's gentle side profile, a thought flashed through her mind. Fragmented scenes flashed past her eyes like a merry-go-round. She suddenly recalled Gu Xingze standing in front of her and holding her shoulders uncontrollably. He carefully probed, "Can't I? Must it be him? Can't I? What Mu Yaja can do, I can do too. I can also give you everything he can give you. What he can't give you, what he can't promise you, I can also give you. So, can't I?" In his eyes, she was so fragile as if she was a bubble that would burst at the slightest touch. "Yun Shishir, I really like you. You don't have to deliberately avoid me. If you like me, you like me. If you don't like me, you don't like me. I just don't like to suppress myself. I like you. If you change your mind, I'll wait for you at the same place. However, I won't force you to like me, nor will I do those things that make things difficult for you. So, you don't have to hide from me like this, understand? At least, please retain my right to like you. Please let me protect you silently, Yun Shishir snapped back to reality from her memories. Unknowingly, she was deeply moved by Gu Xing's singing. She could actually feel the love that he had buried deep in his heart from his singing. Her heart suddenly ached and she felt suffocated. She could feel Gu Xing's determination to protect her silently. She recalled that he seemed to be intentionally or unintentionally cold and indifferent to her. Even when he smiled, it was the kind of gentleness a senior would show to a junior. However, when he sang, the sadness in his voice could not be hidden at all. She knew very well that he had not really let go of her. He was just hiding this deep in his heart. He did not say anything because he did not want his feelings to burden her. Mu Shi, who was standing at the side, was also shocked. His singing was so affectionate. All his emotions were gathered in the lyrics, especially his eyes, which were filled with endless affection. Mu Shi guessed that there must be someone he loved very much in his heart. What do you mean by hiding in the lyrics? Is a proper noun. Compose a poem by the position of the fallen leaves. Our story is just beginning. This is the first time. To love someone so generously and selfishly, you are my keyword. When the song ended, Gu Xingzi stood up and turned to look at Yun Shishir. Her eyes were wide open and filled with tears. In the blink of an eye, tears rolled down her cheeks. She came back to her senses from the song and realized that she was actually crying emotionally as she listened to it. Gu Xingzi walked in front of her, picked up a handkerchief, and gently wiped away her tears. Yun Shishir smiled and looked up at him. She clapped for him. Thank you. You sang so well. I cried listening to it. Gu Xingzi smiled helplessly and reached out to stroke her head. Little fool. His eyes were filled with doting love. Mu Shi, who was at the side, almost screamed out loud when she saw this. Ah! Xingzi's boyfriend power is off the charts. He's too gentle. Chapter 1429. The production team was also silent for a moment. They were all stunned by Gu Xingzi's sudden song. They did not expect that Gu Xingzi would play and sing a song for Yun Shishir. However, if the show's effects were to be produced, it would definitely be good. It was a very amusing scene, and the viewership ratings would definitely be first. Throughout the entire recording process, Mu Shi was watching it live. When she witnessed Yun Shishir and Gu Xingzi's first date, she felt as if she had been fed a mouthful of dog food. She felt stifled. She felt as if she had been showered with affection. This reality show was simply torturing single people. This was especially true for a single person like her. Watching the whole process, she was hurt 10,000 points. The scene of Gu Xingzi wiping Yun Shishir's tears, in particular, was a blow to her heart. Her heart felt as if it had been stabbed hard. She felt pain and jealousy. To be in a relationship with the nation's Prince Charming was the dream of many young girls. Ah, oh, God. Xingzi is so handsome. Xingzi is so gentle. His side profile when he plays the piano is so handsome. Just one look from him is enough to kill me. Mu Shi held her face and wanted to scream uncontrollably. She was so envious of Yun Shishir. Even if this was just a reality show, to put it bluntly, it was just a show. However, even if she knew that this was fake, Mu Shi was still infatuated with Gu Xingzi's tenderness. Especially when he looked at Yun Shishir, his gaze was so gentle that it could drown her. Mu Shi's heart melted as she watched. She bit the corner of her shirt aggrievedly and suddenly envied Yun Shishir. The recording of the first episode of The Love Diary ended smoothly. After it ended, there were 2 more segments left, and that was Love Whispers. The 2 artistes entered a small dark room respectively to watch the edited scenes of the show. While they were being interviewed, they would also express their experiences and feelings about their first date. Yun Shishir watched the edited scenes and expressed her feelings. Senior Xingzi is really a very gentle person. He has also taken great care of me. I remember the first time I met Senior Xingze, it was on set. He took care of me no matter how big or small the matter was. He was also very gentlemanly. In my heart, he's a heavenly king, the nation's Prince Charming. Sometimes, working with him can be quite stressful. However, he always told me not to feel pressured. It's a pleasure working with him. Actually, this is my first time filming this show, so I'm quite nervous. But on the first date, it was more of a surprise. Especially when he played and sang that song, I was very surprised and pleasantly surprised. I really didn't expect that he would specially prepare this song for me. I'm surprised and touched at the same time. At the end of the recording, she made a heart sign to the camera. Brother Xingze, I love you. These lines were all memorized according to the script. The production team had divided the key points, and she memorized this part very carefully. Thus, the recording ended smoothly. Just as she walked out of the recording studio, Mushi pounced on her tearfully and bitterly said, Sure. I'm really envious of you. Yun Sure broke out in cold sweat. What's wrong? Chapter 1430. Yun Sure glanced at her coldly. I'm going home. Mushi then said, Wait, you have a mission tonight. What? It turned out that her manager had arranged a last-minute schedule for her. She was to enter the recording studio tonight to complete a difficult task. The post-production of The Green Apple had entered its final stage, and that was the post-production dubbing. Generally speaking, for a teen movie like The Green Apple, the dubbing was usually done by professional dubbing actors due to the artist's accents and lines, as well as the character's plot settings and other considerations. Many artists' lines were not up to standard, and some had different accents, such as Beijing or Jiangnan, which made their lines appear abrupt. Lin Fengtian, however, felt that Yun Sure and Gu Xingze had a good foundation in their lines. Yun Sure's voice, in particular, was fluent in Mandarin and had a good foundation in her lines. She had no problems with her lines, too. Her voice was gentle, pleasant, and as clear as spring water. More importantly, her voice was very close to the original character's setting. Hence, Lin Fengtian solemnly decided to give up on dubbing actors and let Yun Sure complete the post-production dubbing with her original voice. The Green Apple was 2 hours long, and Yin Xiaochuan had more than 300 lines. It was quite a huge project. Lin Fengtian specially found a dubbing teacher and threw Yun Sure into the recording studio. She would spend the next 3 days on this. According to his estimation, it would take about 3 days to complete all the dubbing. Yun Sure specially applied for leave from home, stated the reason, and guiltily apologized to Yu and Xiao Yichen. When Yu learned that Yun Sure had to work and could not return home for 3 days, he felt depressed and heartbroken at the same time. These few days, ever since his mother resumed work, her schedule had been packed. The movie was about to enter its promotional period, so she would probably have to fly all over the country. Apparently, his mother had recently accepted a film contract and would be joining the production team soon. Mu Yaja was busy wrapping up the acquisition of the Meng Group, so he always came home late. Hence, Yu and Xiao Yichen could only pitifully rely on each other. In the end, the work that was supposed to be completed in 3 days was delayed to a week. It was not because of anything else but because Yun Sure was not a dubbing actress. When she acted, she had a good foundation in her lines because of her emotions. However, after filming ended for so long, she did not adjust her emotional state during the acting process. In addition, Lin Fengtian's harsh work attitude, and his nitpicking. Poor Yun Sure, who had just been ravaged by Lin Fengtian, had yet to regain her composure when she was dragged by her manager to board a private plane to Italy for the Milan Fashion Week. On the plane, Yun Sure still had not figured out the itinerary of their flight to Italy. I'm taking you to watch a show. Qin Zhou explained. Watch a show? Yun Sure widened her eyes in shock. Boss Chin, I haven't slept for 3 days. As she spoke, she pitifully pointed at the dark circles under her eyes and said in an aggrieved tone, "Did you see my dark circles? Do you see them? I haven't slept for a day and a night. If this goes on, I suspect that I will die in the line of duty." Chapter 1431. Ha! Yun Shishir was so tired that she slumped on the chair. She felt that her whole life was gloomy. "I'm so tired. I want to hug my pillow and sleep until the sky turns dark. Dreams are always beautiful," Qin Zhou quietly said from the side. Yun Shishir was disheartened. She said miserably, "I want to sleep. There are still 5 hours before landing in Italy. You can use this time to catch up on sleep." Yun Shishir complained, "Boss Qin, you're squeezing your employees dry." "I protest." "Protest overruled." "I appeal." "Overruled." "I'm going to die." Yun Shishir had no choice but to compromise. She pitifully covered her face with her clothes and put the chair down. After a while, she quickly fell asleep. She was really tired. As soon as the plane landed, Yun Shishir, who had yet to adjust to the jet lag, was hurriedly dragged to the studio by her manager. The moment she stepped in, she was surrounded by 3 top-notch stylists who were eyeing her covetously. Yun Shishir was speechless. Could she say that the way these men looked at her was scary? Yun Shishir raised her hands and surrendered. Then, she allowed the 3 stylists to surround her. One moment, they were messing with her hairstyle, the next moment, they were messing with her makeup, and the next moment, they were messing with her clothes. Qin Zhou stood at the side and gave advice from time to time. There were a few times when Yun Shishir's hairstyle was not up to standard. With one sentence from Qin Zhou, they were all dismantled and redone. Yun Shishir was so sleepy that she kept yawning. When she was putting on makeup, she dozed off a few times. When her head fell down, her eyeliner messed up her entire face. Qin Zhou could not stand it anymore. He waved his hand and said, "That's all for now. Go back and rest first." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Yun Shishir raised her hands and cheered. When she stood up, her stomach suddenly growled. She had not eaten anything for a day and was obviously hungry. Yun Shishir held her stomach pitifully and looked at Qin Zhou. She bit her lip and complained, "I'm hungry. Bear with it." Qin Zhou snorted and said heartlessly, "It's already night time. You can't eat." "But I'm really hungry." She was trying her best to catch up on sleep on the plane, but she didn't have a good rest. Qin Zhou lectured her, "There's a show tomorrow afternoon. If you put on more weight, it won't do." Yun Shishir, "There will be a lot of big names from Hollywood attending the Milan fashion show tomorrow. Do you want to make a fool of yourself on the red carpet?" "I don't care, you have to be beautiful when you appear on the runway tomorrow. Your face must be as sharp as you want it to be, and your waist must be as thin as you want it to be. Do you understand?" Yun Shishir almost rolled her eyes. "Go back and rest. Wash up and wait for me at 5:00 tomorrow morning." Yun Shishir seemed to have lost all her strength. It was already 10:00 at night. Oh God, as soon as she entered the hotel, she threw herself on the bed and made use of the time to catch up on sleep. When Qin Zhou appeared at the door of Yun Shishir's room at 5:00 in the morning the next day, he opened the door and saw Yun Shishir's resentful face. He looked at her eyes. They were bloodshot and there were faint dark circles under her eyes. She sounded as if she was about to cry. "I didn't sleep well last night." Qin Zhou raised his eyebrows. Yun Shishir said, "I can't get used to the bed." Qin Zhou held his forehead helplessly. "I give up. Your schedule will only get more and more packed in the future. You have to get used to it as soon as possible." Yun Shishir's voice became weaker. I know. Chapter 1432. The hairstyling process was long and boring. Hence, Yun Shishir played with her phone while she permed her hair. However, when she opened Weibo, she suddenly realized that there were tens of thousands of new fans and countless comments. She was stunned. What was going on? Qin Zhou saw the suspicion on her face and kindly reminded her, the show was broadcast yesterday. It turned out that the first episode of The Love Diary was broadcast on Qingguang TV on the day she boarded the plane. The publicity for the show was overwhelming and it caused a sensation. Many die-hard fans of Gu Xingze were attracted to the show. On Weibo, the number of topics and discussions about the lucky couple rose to the top. Many fans of the original novel of The Green Apple even came to support them. Under the anticipation of the audience, the show was broadcast and it won the #1 spot among the primetime variety shows. There was no doubt about Gu Xingze's influence and appeal. No matter how one looked at it, there was no doubt about Gu Xingze's popularity. Once the show was broadcast, there was a heated discussion about the show online. For a reality show like The Love Diary, post-production was very important. Coupled with the character designs in the script, Yun Shishir and Gu Xingze's characters were very likable. One was a pure campus belle while the other was a warm and caring guy. Coupled with the gimmick of the first date, many people fell in love with Gu Xingze's performance. It was Gu Xingze's first time participating in such a romantic reality show. As a fan of Gu Xingze, it was a huge attraction. Through the show, many viewers saw how romantic and affectionate their idol was when he was a boyfriend. They were even more fanatical. Unsurprisingly, half of the comments on Yun Shishir's Weibo were from Gu Xingze's die-hard fans. All kinds of unpleasant words were endless. There were even many marketing accounts that publicly humiliated Yun Shishir and accused her of using Gu Xingze's popularity to hurt Gu Xingze's fans. Yun Shishir did not read much of it. Qin Zhou specifically reminded her not to read the comments online for the time being to avoid getting hurt. She listened obediently and did not look at Weibo. However, Qin Zhou had his own reasons for giving such an order. It was not because of anything else, but because the fans who insulted Yun Shishir were all paid by Qin Zhou. This was also one of his methods. After the show was broadcasted, he immediately hired tens of thousands of ghostwriters to surround Yun Shishir's Weibo and attack her without thinking. They also clamored for #Yun Shishir to get out of the entertainment industry #. This was taking advantage of the public's sympathy for the weak mentality. If he did not do that, firstly, Yun Shishir's Weibo would definitely be attacked by Gu Xingze's fans after the show was aired. Secondly, it would be difficult for his team to control the situation. Therefore, he took the lead and sent out the internet water army to attack Yun Shishir with all kinds of vicious words. All kinds of attacks were unsightly and extremely vicious. As a result, many passers-by could not bear to continue watching. Thus, some kind-hearted netizens began to emerge. Are some of Gu Xingze's die-hard fans crazy? What right do they have to clamor for Yun Shishir to get out of the entertainment industry? What right do you have? Yun Shishir is so pitiful. Just because the program team arranged for her to participate in the reality show with Gu Xingze, she was attacked like this. How pitiful. Chapter 1433. She's just an imaginary couple with Gu Xingze. Does she have to suffer so many rumors for no reason? Shishir, you can do it. Don't bother about those unreasonable fans. I'm your fan and I really like The Green Apple. When the movie is released, I'll definitely support it. In an instant, the #Shishir, you can do it # became the top trending topic on Weibo. Many Yun Shishir's fans also started to fight back. Yun Shishir's fans deliberately took screenshots of Yun Shishir's beautiful moments from the show. Her good looks attracted many passers-by. Oh my god! Who is this woman? She's so beautiful. She reminds me of my first love. She has the temperament of a campus belle. I think she and Gu Xingze are quite compatible. I don't remember her name, but I know her. She's the newbie who acted in The Green Apple with Gu Xingze. She's so beautiful. Her nose is so beautiful and her eyes are so beautiful. It's as if there are many stars hidden in them. She's so beautiful. She's like an otherworldly fairy. Could it be that she's had plastic surgery? Many popular actresses nowadays are not original. Could it be that she's also had plastic surgery? The funny thing was, when some people questioned Yun Shusher's plastic surgery, many netizens who used to be plastic surgeons came forward to analyze it. I've carefully studied Yun Shusher's facial features. They're perfect. She has the perfect proportions of an Asian beauty. Her temperament is also very ethereal. The corners of her eyes are natural and the curve of her nose is also very natural. She doesn't look like she's had plastic surgery. I'm a plastic surgeon. I've studied her facial features. They're all natural. She hasn't gone under the knife. Facial features that have gone under the knife are very obvious. Many netizens started to look forward to the second episode of the show. I'm really looking forward to the second episode. But The Love Diary only has 2 episodes a month. We have to wait for another half a month for the second episode. I'm so envious of Shusher. Although I know that The Love Diary is just a reality show, I still think that she and Xingze are really compatible when they stand together. Mu Group. After Mu Yaja finished dealing with his work, he suddenly received an email. Inside the email was a link to a video website. The sender was Minyu. Boss, Madam is recording a new episode. Mu Yaja clicked on it. It was a program titled The Love Diary. Love Diary. Looking at the introduction of the show, it seemed to be a reality show about imaginary love. He frowned slightly. Ji Lin would report Yun Shusher's schedule to him every week. Among them, he mentioned that Yun Shusher had recently accepted a reality show. He only knew that it was a reality show, but he didn't know that it was a hypothetical love show. Mu Yaja scanned through the list and saw Gu Xingze's name on it. His good-looking eyebrows furrowed even deeper at this sight. Gu Xingze. Why was it him? Out of curiosity, he picked up the mouse and clicked play. The video was 50 minutes long, but he was actually very patient. He finished watching it without fast-forwarding for even a minute. However, the more he watched, the gloomier his expression became. He felt inexplicably unhappy. Especially when he saw Yun Shusher crying after Gu Xingze played a song in the cafe. His frown deepened. Why was she crying? Why was she crying? Was this a script? Chapter 1434. Mu Yaja furrowed his brows deeply, and his eyes were filled with anger. The reality show's post-production team had been specially hired to handle the entire production, so the show's effect was romantic and interesting. The scene of the two people's first date was especially romantic. Gu Xingze prepared a beautiful necklace for Yun Shusher, and even put it on her personally. The scene where he put it on her was filmed in slow motion, and it matched with the love song Gu Xingze had specially written for the movie, The Green Apple. The entire scene seemed to be filled with pink bubbles, and it made people's hearts beat faster. Yun Shusher prepared a cake for Gu Xingze that had failed to bake, and there was a scene where she personally fed Gu Xingze. Mu Yaja watched the show expressionlessly from start to finish, and his face darkened. It was just a reality show. Reality shows were like movies, they had a script. Even though Mu Yaja knew that the so-called reality show was just a fake show, he was still upset and was about to turn it off. At the end of the show, Gu Xingze suddenly confessed his true feelings. On the screen was a quiet recording studio. He sat on the sofa, facing the camera, and talked about his feelings for the date. Where did you first meet her? Gu Xingze pondered for a moment, and his eyes suddenly curved. The first time I met her was at Huanyu's annual cocktail party. She was wearing a gorgeous gown, and her makeup wasn't very thick, but she was very beautiful. Her beauty was probably something that could not be described with superficial words. She had a very special aura that attracted me immediately. He spoke very slowly, and his eyes were looking at the camera with a slight smile. When he mentioned Yunshusher, the affection in his eyes could be clearly felt even through the screen. This man loved her deeply from the bottom of his heart. At the cocktail party, I invited her to dance with me. She had never learned ballroom dancing before, and she felt very clumsy. There were a few times when she stepped on my leather shoes. She was clumsy, but it felt. His voice suddenly stopped, and his eyes were filled with emotions, as if he was immersed in the memory of that day at the cocktail party. She felt very cute. The scene suddenly changed, and there was a scene from the date. It replayed the scene when Yunshusher took out the cake that she had baked for him. She looked defeated and cautious, and together with Gu Xing's voiceover, it was touching. I like clumsy girls, and maybe I'm a male chauvinist in some ways. I like to pamper my girlfriend, and let her make trouble in my arms. I like that feeling, it makes me feel very safe. Is she clumsy? Actually, she's not stupid, but she's very kind, gentle, and treats people with sincerity. I like these qualities of hers. They're very attractive to me. In the next scene, the production team took out another question board. Do you believe in love at first sight? Gu Xingze was taken aback when he was asked this question. His gaze and thoughts drifted away. Is this question difficult to answer? Gu Xingze stopped thinking and suddenly shook his head. Then your answer is love at first sight. He narrowed his eyes and suddenly looked at the camera with a serious expression. Before I met her, I probably didn't. Chapter 1435. On his handsome face, the sullen expression was already overflowing with words. On the screen, a line of pink words appeared. Is TA your ideal type? When Gu Xingze received the question board, he was a little stunned. He suddenly asked, ideal type? Yes. Generally speaking, you should have fantasies about your ideal lover. Gu Xingze pursed his lips and answered directly, I don't have an ideal type. Ah. The production crew was a little surprised and laughed. How can you not have an ideal type? Generally, men would have certain fantasies about their future lovers when they met and fell in love with each other. For example, long hair, figure, appearance, temperament. Gu Xingze also laughed. His thin lips curled up slightly, revealing a slight smile. After a moment of silence, his expression suddenly sank slightly. He said slowly, because of some reasons, I thought that I would probably never fall in love with anyone in my life. Gu Xingze revealed his true feelings for the first time and brought up his background. When I was young, my parents broke up. I was exiled abroad and grew up alone, so I didn't experience the feeling of family. I don't know what love is like. I only know that my mother's relationship was a failure. She was abandoned, and then. He did not continue, but there was a faint melancholy in his eyes. This was the first time Gu Xingze had shown this side of him in front of the camera. In the past, he had always been aloof and extraordinary, giving people the impression that he was a very sunny idol. However, in front of the camera, for the first time in his life, he looked a little depressed in front of the camera. Actually, I don't believe in love at all. I feel that love is a kind of illusory thing that can't be touched or seen. At the same time, it only imperceptibly gives people a heavy burden and makes it difficult for them to move forward. After being in the entertainment industry for so many years, there hasn't been a woman who has made me feel like starting a family. The production crew said with heartache, this is the first time Xingze has mentioned this in front of the camera. Because I didn't have a family when I was young, my concept of family is very weak. Gu Xingze smiled. She gives me a feeling. How do you feel? He described it seriously. It's like a fated encounter, a fated lover. Fated lovers. A line of words appeared on the screen. He continued, if we have to talk about the ideal type, then it would be Shusher, right? Oh. Is Shusher your ideal type? Gu Xingzi smiled deeply. I like her no matter who she is. You like her beauty. Gu Xingzi shook his head. To be honest, I've seen many women more beautiful than her. The production team asked, then what do you like about her? Gu Xingzi thought hard for a while, then suddenly said, it's an indescribable feeling. The production team, indescribable. That's right. Nothing can be explained clearly. The production team was a little surprised. What do you mean? Gu Xingzi said affectionately, once you like someone, no matter what she looks like, no matter if she dresses up nicely or doesn't care about trifles, no matter if she's tall or short, fat or thin, rich or poor, you will like her. No one can replace her. Do you like the gift from TA? That cake. Gu Xingzi raised his eyebrows and suddenly smiled. There was a slight disdain in his eyes. Chapter 1436. But you looked so happy when you were eating the cake. You looked like you liked it a lot. Gu Xingzi said seriously, yes, I liked it a lot. The production crew. Because she was the one who made it. Gu Xingzi explained, even if I got food poisoning from eating it, I would still eat it. It was her kind intentions. I liked it a lot. As he said that, his face turned slightly red. In the slow-motion camera, Gu Xingzi's smile was gentle and affectionate. What do you want to say to your idol? Gu Xingzi suddenly pursed his lips shyly and avoided the camera. The shyness on his face was rare and had never been seen in front of the camera. In the past, Gu Xingzi was always cold and indifferent in front of the camera. Even in front of his fans, he had never shown such an adorable smile. Like a shy boy, he smiled with his eyes squinted and was extremely gentle. Don't be shy. Gu Xingzi said, since it's from the bottom of my heart, I should say it to her secretly. I can't say it to you guys. The crew started to coax him, you can say it here. She can see it too. Really? Yes. Gu Xingzi turned and looked at the camera as if he was looking at her. Suddenly, he said solemnly, please be my girlfriend. Then, there was a long silence. The crew was stunned. That's it. Gu Xingzi's face turned even redder. The crew tried to persuade him again. Do you have anything you want to confess to her? Gu Xingzi mustered up his courage again and looked at the camera. His eyes were deep, but his smile faded and he looked a little solemn. Sure, I like you. I really like you. I don't know if you will like me like this. But I will try my best to give you happiness. Please date me. If possible, we can start a family together and then, bear a child for me. I will be a responsible husband and father. Gu Xingzi paused for a moment and said seriously, I really like you. After saying that, he smiled gently in slow motion. The scene was so beautiful that one could not help but be moved to tears. Pa Muyaja slammed his notebook shut, his face extremely gloomy. He made a call and instructed Minyu to report Yunshusher's recent schedule to him. Not long after, Minyu sent Yunshusher's schedule for this month to her. 1 month, 30 days. Every day's schedule was packed to the brim. At first glance, there was almost no time to breathe. According to her itinerary, she was currently in Italy, rushing to Milan Fashion Week. Milan Fashion Week was one of the 4 most famous fashion weeks in the world. Milan, Paris, New York, and London. Among the 4 major fashion weeks, Milan Fashion Week was the latest to rise. But now, it was already at the top. It gathered the top figures in the fashion industry, thousands of professional buyers, and professional media and style trends from all over the world. The global spread of these elements was far beyond other business models. As one of the top 4 fashion weeks in the world, Milan Fashion Week in Italy was considered the barometer of fashion design and consumption in the world. Chapter 1437. As everyone knew, many female celebrities were working hard to become an international superstar. Compared to the red carpet at the Oslo, Berlin, Venice, and Cannes Film Festival, the fashion show was more approachable and had a lower threshold. The International Fashion Week, which happened twice a year, was not only a major event in the global luxury industry, but also an important opportunity for many female celebrities to grab the headlines. Every mid-autumn festival season, many female celebrities would rush to the fashion shows without prior agreement. Watching a fashion show was a very high-class thing. Although the threshold was low, it wasn't easy to get an invitation letter. It should be noted that when a luxury brand held a fashion show during Fashion Week, the range of invitations they could send out was strictly limited. In fact, 40% of the invitations were for the world's top fashion media. 30% was for famous fashion buyers. 10% was for celebrities and guests. 10% was for top VIP customers. The last 10% was reserved for random allocation. As a VIP, Muyaja also received an invitation to the Milan show, but he threw it aside. He wasn't interested in fashion shows, so he didn't plan to go. Celebrities who received a direct invitation from a brand were of course the highest status. The right to watch the show in the VIP section was a top-notch standard. Ordinary female celebrities couldn't get this position. In addition, people in this position not only had the priority to choose clothes to wear in the show, but they could also be personally received by the brand's designer to pave the way for future cooperation. Celebrities who didn't have a direct connection with the brand could choose to connect with 40% of the media. As the domestic media increased their coverage of the Fashion Week, watching a show with a celebrity became the focus of various reports. Some media even hired celebrities as special fashion observers, which became a win-win cooperation model. On one hand, the media used the gimmick of famous celebrities to enrich their coverage. On the other hand, celebrities could also use the media to increase their exposure. Some celebrities who didn't have any works, but had good looks and temperament, became the media's partners. Of course, some low-ranking female celebrities didn't even have such conditions. They didn't even have the qualifications to attend the fashion show. But in order to gain space and ride the popularity of the fashion show, they would fight at their own expense. They would take the initiative to pay the media's travel expenses, bribe the brand's public relations with high prices, and get in through the back door. Even if they didn't have a seat, standing was enough to write a few rounds of publicity. What outshines the crowd? What heaven-shattering beauty? What stunning appearance at the end of the show? What was the truth? Many female celebrities who failed to get an invitation to the fashion show shamelessly went to the red carpet, but they were still rejected by the ruthless fashion show. Even so, they still had to pretend to be elegant and stand outside the entrance of the fashion show to take a few glamorous photos. Later, they would use the publicity to hype themselves up, which was also a good way to get publicity. Yoon Shusher's participation in the fashion show this time was all because her manager had helped her secure a collaboration with a major brand not long ago. Chapter 1438. Muyaja rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Suddenly, his gaze fell on the invitation letter that he had thrown aside. After receiving the invitation letter for the Milan fashion show, he threw it aside. He picked it up again and looked at it carefully. Then, he dialed Min Yu's private number. "Book me a direct flight to Milan." "Ha! Boss, there's a final meeting tomorrow. Reschedule it." Muyaja said calmly, "Book the ticket now." "Okay." Min Yu didn't dare to disobey his orders. He immediately rushed to book the ticket. Milan. In the stylist studio, Yoon Shusher's styling was done. A few stylists surrounded her and took turns to examine her. Then, they pushed her in front of Chin Zhou. Qin Zhou crossed his arms and looked her up and down a few times. His gaze fell on her face and he stared at her carefully for a long time. Yun Shushu raised her eyebrows. Is there a problem? Lip color. Qin Zhou tapped his lips and commented, it's too light. Do you need to touch up your lip color? Of course. If the lip color is too light, it won't look good on camera. It'll make you look haggard. Qin Zhou was obviously experienced. He had attended more fashion shows than many female celebrities. Therefore, he had a high aesthetic standard when it came to makeup. One of the stylists said, her skin is very fair. Indeed, dark lipstick is more suitable. Qin Zhou instructed the stylists, use Dior Blue Gold No. 999 for her. Okay. Yun Shushu touched up her lip color. The Dior Blue Gold No. 999 color was especially bright. Together with her fair skin, the makeup gave off a noble and gorgeous feeling. Qin Zhou was satisfied. Very good. What about now? Qin Zhou snapped his fingers and said, follow me to the venue to pick out the dress. After that, Qin Zhou immediately brought Yun Shushu to the star-making factory to make the final preparations for the show. The dresses for the female celebrities were all prepared by the brand. This time, Louis Vuitton had prepared 20 sets of gowns. Generally speaking, these gowns would be given to A-list celebrities and VIPs to choose from before being given to B-list and B-list celebrities to choose from. Therefore, when it was time for the celebrities to choose, they had no choice. In addition, most of the new clothes from these brands were samples that had not yet been put on the shelves. Most of the designs were custom-made according to the figures of Westerners. In order to make the dress fit better, the tailors had to do some post-processing, which would inevitably destroy the original cut and layering of the dress. If the celebrity's temperament couldn't be controlled, a big brand's ready-made clothes would be reduced to a David. The size of the gown was on the slim side according to model standards. Therefore, Qin Zhou didn't allow Yun Shushu to eat too much these days. He couldn't gain weight. She really couldn't put on more weight. Even if she gained 0.01 kilograms, it wouldn't do. The sizes of the gowns from the brand were on the small side. If she picked a beautiful gown but had to give it up in the end because her figure didn't match the gown, she would be in an awkward situation. As for the so-called joint name, the brand had its own standards. Even if it was difficult to pull a button, the gown would have to be given up. After all, the gowns prepared by the brand were all worth tens of millions. They were magnificent treasures, and some of them were limited edition. Therefore, the requirements for a celebrity's figure were very strict. Chapter 1439. Qin Zhou had put in a lot of effort so that Yun Shushu could appear beautiful on camera. Many big names were present on the day of the fashion show. Female celebrities came one after another to attend this grand fashion event. Han Yuyan, Yang Mi, Lin Ji. Of course, there were also some female celebrities with lower status who were on their way. When they arrived at Louis Vuitton's studio, they were surprised to see Lin Ji there. Lin Ji was stunned to see Qin Zhou and Yun Shushu. She did not expect Yun Shushu to receive an invitation from Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton had only sent out 20 invitations. Among them, only 6 were sent to the domestic celebrity circle. 3 of them were sent to 3 of the more famous female celebrities in the fashion industry. To put it bluntly, they were red carpet professionals. Qin Zhou called them carpet stars. Other than Yun Shushu, the other was Lin Ji. Lin Ji had shot a series of print ads for Louis Vuitton's spring collection. This was the first print ad that Lin Ji had received from a major brand. Because of this, Lin Ji's team had been wantonly promoting Lin Ji's high status. After all, as one of the top luxury fashion brands, to be able to get a print ad from Louis Vuitton was extremely dazzling. Qin Zhou was especially disdainful. Useless. She had received a print ad and was bragging so much that she wanted to announce it to the world. What a disgrace. Lin Ji saw Qin Zhou and smiled slightly. She quickly walked up to him and greeted him gracefully. Hello, CEO Qin. She took the initiative to greet him enthusiastically, yet she completely ignored Yun Shishir, who was standing at the side. It was as if the latter did not exist in her eyes. She was deliberately giving her the cold shoulder. Or perhaps, in Lin Ji's eyes, Yun Shishir was just a newcomer. She could not be compared to her at all. If they were to greet each other, Yun Shishir should be greeting her first. If she were to greet her first, it would be beneath her status. However, Qin Zhou was different. He was one of the top managers in the industry. His methods were top-notch. Moreover, he was a shareholder of Huanyu. If she could get to know him, she could ask him to pave the way for her in the future. She had her eyes on the gold resources in his hands. Her ambition was obvious. Qin Zhou glanced at her with disdain in his eyes. He frowned and also looked at her with disdain. He looked to the side and whistled. Humph. His face was cold and noble. Since this Lin Ji was so arrogant that she ignored Yun Shishir and treated her like air, then he wouldn't take her seriously either. His sneer and the indifference on his face caused Lin Ji's face to darken and turn livid. This was clearly not giving her face in public. Yun Shishir looked at Lin Ji and then at Qin Zhou. She raised her eyebrows. Lin Ji turned around slightly and smiled at Yun Shishir like a slipper. However, this smile was a fake one. It was just a smile on her lips, but the smile did not reach her eyes. Shishir, it's you. Sigh, look at me. I only noticed you because my eyesight is bad. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Her smile was cold and stiff. There was no friendliness in it at all. Yun Shishir heard this and smiled coldly. Hello, are you, the stylist here? Pfft. Qin Zhou laughed rudely. Chapter 1440. Qin Zhou laughed rudely. Shishir, you're too cute. She's not a stylist, she's Lin Ji. You should have seen her before. Lin Ji's expression turned even uglier. This Yun Shishir, was she deliberately picking a fight? However, Yun Shishir looked as if she had suddenly realized something. Oh. I saw her during the audition for Lethal Beauty. She auditioned for the female lead with me, Lin Ji. After saying that, Yun Shishir mimicked Lin Ji and put on a fake smile. She said as hypocritically as she could, Senior Lin Ji, I'm sorry. Your makeup is too thick. I didn't recognize you for a while. It would have been fine if she hadn't said that, but once she did, Lin Ji's expression was as ugly as it could get. Was this Yun Shishir doing it on purpose? Was she mocking her for having too much makeup? Qin Zhou smiled satisfactorily and looked at Yun Shishir with satisfaction. Not bad. This little lass's ability to make people uncomfortable had improved quite a bit. At this thought, he raised his brows and continued Yun Shishir's words, saying, it can't be helped. Some people don't have the temperament and beauty, so they can only rely on makeup to maintain their looks. Shishir, don't look down on others. Qin Zhou's mouth was so venomous that it made people speechless. It wasn't without reason that he said that. He had seen Lin Ji's bare face once by chance. She was simply a passerby. If it weren't for the fact that her facial features were sculpted and could rely on makeup to maintain her beauty, her facial features weren't purely natural. Who knew how many times they had been processed in the post-production? Being hailed as the #1 costume starlet was just an undeserved reputation. Compared to Yun Shishir, she was really too far behind. Lin Ji was completely speechless. Qin Zhou was famous for his poisonous tongue. In addition, Yun Shishir had learned something, and would occasionally add salt to the wound. She was beaten black and blue. But she found it hard to refute. Lin Ji was not a natural beauty like Yun Shishir. Her nose was padded, her chin was shaved, and her eyelids were cut. Even so, it was difficult for her to compete with Yun Shishir in terms of ancient costumes. This was also the reason why she was eyeing Yun Shishir covetously. She was very ostracizing her. Her sixth sense told her that as long as this Yun Shishir could seize the opportunity, she would definitely become famous overnight and surpass her. However, even though she was mocked mercilessly, she couldn't do anything to Yun Shishir in front of Qin Zhou. She could only glare at her secretly. Qin Zhou suddenly asked curiously, Lin Ji, I heard that the female lead of Lethal Beauty has been decided on you. Is that true? Lin Ji regained some confidence after hearing his question. She raised her chin proudly and said proudly, yes. The female lead has already been decided. Although the production team hasn't released any news, the female lead has already been confirmed to be me. What a pity. Qin Zhou suddenly said. Lin Ji was stunned for a moment and looked at him in confusion. Obviously, she didn't understand what he meant. CEO Qin, what do you mean? Qin Zhou smiled coldly and said slowly, if it weren't for our Shishir wanting to challenge for the role of the second female lead, this female lead might not have been yours. Speaking of which, shouldn't you thank our Shishir? Lin Ji's face froze. She was so angry that she was about to vomit blood. Ah! She was really mad. Chapter 1441. It was said that Qin Zhou was famous for his poisonous tongue. Now that she had experienced it herself, it was true that he lived up to his reputation. This Qin Zhou was simply infuriating her. And this Yun Shishir, she was purely trying to annoy her. Lin Ji was so angry that she gritted her teeth. However, she couldn't do anything to Qin Zhou and Yun Shishir. She could only say in a sarcastic tone, I'm also very flattered to be able to receive Director Gu's recognition. However, since Director Gu chose me as the female lead, he must have his own opinions. After all, Director Gu is a famous gold medal director in the industry. His foresight is unquestionable. She was using Gu Xiaoyang's words to elevate her own status. Lin Ji kept praising Gu Xiaoyang's foresight. Wasn't she just indirectly flaunting that she had won the female lead role in Lethal Beauty based on her own capabilities? Qin Zhou was disdainful. What was there to rely on? If the entertainment industry really relied on capabilities, how could Lin Ji be considered a crooked person? Didn't she rely on her sugar daddy to get to where she was? At the thought of this, Qin Zhou was angry. If not for his Shishir wanting to challenge for the role of the second female lead, the female lead role would not have been Lin Ji's. Qin Zhou had been in the industry for so many years. With so many connections, how could he not be able to get the female lead role? He snorted coldly. He couldn't bear to see Lin Ji humiliating Yun Shishir in front of him. His impression of Lin Ji instantly changed from a passerby to a hater. Hence, he sneered, Lin Ji, then you'd better act well. Our Shishir will be in the same drama as you. She'll be playing the evil female lead in this drama. Don't let Shishir become famous while you don't. That'll be ugly. Lin Ji's expression darkened even further. Qin Zhou's words really stung her. He had said this because there was an allusion to it. Previously, Lin Ji had taken part in a period drama. In that period drama, she played the female lead. However, the female lead's persona was the standard naive and sweet one. It was very unlikable. If this persona had been put in a decade ago, perhaps the audience would have liked it. However, after more than 10 years of acting in the same silly and sweet way, the audience had long been tired of it. They despised the role played by Lin Ji. If it wasn't for her looks, she would have lost a lot of fans because of that drama. However, this was not the end. What she couldn't accept the most was that the second female lead in the drama, whose love turned to hate and was madly infatuated with love, had a vicious character and was extremely unflattering. However, her superb acting skills made her shine in front of everyone's eyes. Her beauty overshadowed the crowd, and she instantly became popular. This fire completely overshadowed Lin Ji's limelight. This film had become the female star's representative work. However, the awkward thing was that when this film was mentioned, the audience's first reaction was probably the second female star, not Lin Ji. Therefore, when Lin Ji heard Qin Zhou's words, she knew that he was mocking her. Why was he so aggressive? Lin Ji was furious. She suddenly turned her eyes and fixed them on Yun Shishir's face. Her eyes narrowed slightly, full of disgust. It was probably because he was protecting Yun Shishir. After all, Qin Zhou was Yun Shishir's immediate manager. Lin Ji had ignored Yun Shishir just now, which had obviously angered him. But, why? Why would the insufferably arrogant Qin Zhou, who was known as the best manager in the industry, worship and protect Yun Shishir in every way possible? Chapter 1442. Besides her beauty, what else did she have? Her acting skills. Lin Ji had never watched any of Yun Shishir's works. At most, she had only watched a few of Yun Shishir's movies. Hence, she did not have any idea of her acting skills. The prideful Lin Ji, on the other hand, naturally did not think much of Yun Shishir. In her eyes, Yun Shishir's acting skills might not be as good as hers. After all, she had debuted a few years earlier than her. In terms of experience and skills, she did not think that she would lose to her. Yun Shishir was just relying on her good resources. But where did she get such good resources from? Wasn't it all from Qin Zhou? Lin Fengtian was able to get a movie, and she was able to work with Gu Xingze when she had just debuted. She even heard that Gu Xingze had specifically invited her to be his female companion at Huanyu's annual cocktail party. She even had access to the resources of The Love Diary. As the second imaginary couple of The Love Diary, this resource was truly a golden resource. Why did she say so? As a brand new variety show, The Love Diary was a new variety show that had just been released. It was created by the best variety show team in Korea. One had to know that reality shows were the best way to build popularity with the audience. It was also a golden resource that many people yearned for. Ordinary people simply could not get it. When The Love Diary was first released, the production team did not know how the show would turn out. Hence, they specially invited two B-list celebrities to be the imaginary couple. After a few episodes, they realized that the show's effect was quite good. After a few episodes of pre-promotion, the production team realized that this reality show had a huge market potential. However, during the period when the show was on the rise, they were eager to stabilize their popularity. Hence, they paid a huge price to invite Gu Xingze. However, as for the female guest, the production team did not initially decide on Yun Shishir. Instead, they decided on another female guest. The reason why Qin Zhou was able to get the resources was because Gu Xingze had contacted the production team. If the female guest was not Yun Shishir, he would have left the production team. How could they accept this? When the production team heard this, they did not hesitate to invite Yun Shishir. One had to know that the success or failure of this program did not depend on the female guest. Most of the viewership ratings depended on the male guest. As a heavenly idol, Gu Xingze alone was enough to support the entire program's value and viewership ratings. That was enough. It didn't matter who the female guest was. Moreover, since Gu Xingze said so, the crew had no choice but to do as he wished. Lin Ji gritted her teeth in anger. The reason why she was so angry was because if Gu Xingze hadn't insisted on naming Yun Shishir, she might have been named as a female guest on this episode of The Love Diary. Why did Gu Xingze pick Yun Shishir? Would Gu Xingzi like Yun Shishir? What a joke. After Lin Ji's anger subsided, she thought about it carefully. She soon suspected that there was an unspeakable relationship between Yun Shishir and Qin Zhou. Back then, when Qin Zhou terminated his contract with Gu Xingzi and signed Yun Shishir as a newcomer, rumors began to spread in the industry. After finding out that Qin Zhou had terminated his contract with Gu Xingzi, many people were in a mess. This Qin Zhou. Had he lost his mind? How could he terminate his contract with Gu Xingzi? Oh please. Was there something wrong with his brain? Gu Xingzi was a money tree. Chapter 1443. Gu Xingzi was the hottest idol in the entertainment industry, the nation's heavenly king. He had been in the industry for 10 years, but he was still doing well. His career was still on the rise and he still had a promising future. In the end, the contract was terminated just like that. At first, people thought that Gu Xingzi and Qin Zhou had a disagreement, so he dumped Qin Zhou. However, they later learned that the two had actually broken up peacefully. This made it even harder for people to figure out what was going on. It was a bit of a mystery and they couldn't see clearly. Until now, many people still couldn't figure out why Qin Zhou would give up the reliable heavenly king Gu to sign a newcomer and promote her without hesitation. There was something even crazier. Qin Zhou actually used heavenly king Gu's popularity to promote Yun Shishir. Was he crazy? Could it be Yun Shishir had been seduced by Qin Zhou? Many people suspected so. Qin Zhou had slept with Yun Shishir, so he made a promise to her that he would make her famous. Generally speaking, the status of a manager was similar to that of an artist. However, Qin Zhou was different. As an ace manager with first-tier resources and a shareholder of Huanyu, Qin Zhou was rich and had a wide network. Let's not talk about this for now. The most important thing was, Qin Zhou had the face of an idol. Therefore, many female celebrities were lining up for him to pamper them. However, Qin Zhou and Gu Xingzi were the same. They were not interested in women, so many people thought that Qin Zhou was gay. Thinking of this, Lin Ji looked at Yun Shishir with viciousness and disgust. Yun Shishir glanced at her from the corner of her eye and keenly caught the other's sinister gaze. Lin Ji was stunned and looked away. Then, she raised her chin and smiled elegantly but coldly. I've been in the entertainment industry for so many years, so my acting skills have been honed. In the past, I didn't have the ability, but now, I can't be sure. I hope so. Qin Zhou smiled coldly. Yun Shishir couldn't stand Lin Ji's arrogant face. She suddenly smiled innocently, tilted her head, and asked innocently, Senior Lin Ji, are you here to attend the fashion show? He didn't wait for Lin Ji to respond. Qin Zhou immediately said, Shishir, you don't understand. Some people didn't sleep for 2 days and 2 nights just to get on the red carpet. They traveled thousands of miles to get here. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Ji's face turned green. She looked at Qin Zhou angrily. Her eyes were filled with confusion and hurt, but more than that, it was anger and embarrassment. Chairman Qin, you've gone too far. After saying that, Lin Ji raised her head pretentiously. As the spokesperson for the new spring collection of nectar, I received an official invitation. You're saying that I'm just trying to get on the red carpet? That's slander. Wow, the spokesperson for the press conference, haha. It's one thing for you to brag in front of the public, but how dare you brag in front of me? Aren't you afraid that you'll be exposed? Qin Zhou mocked him mercilessly. Lin Ji's expression turned even uglier. Indeed. In terms of publicity, Louis Vuitton was divided into brand partner, brand spokesperson, and brand ambassador. These 3 titles were easily confused, but in reality, they were fundamentally different. Chapter 1444. As the spokesperson, Lin Ji was only endorsing one of Louis Vuitton's Nectar series. She was the spokesperson for the entire Nectar collection, from the clothes to the bags. The products she was the spokesperson for were only the tip of the iceberg. It looked glamorous, but it was just a product line under the brand. The value of the endorsement was very low. As for brand ambassador, it meant that she was the spokesperson for the entire brand. In other words, Louis Vuitton's only brand ambassador in the Greater China region was Gu Xingze. They had never had a female spokesperson before. Therefore, Lin Ji was already very pleased with herself after being the spokesperson for one product line. Then, what is she here for? Lin Ji asked aggressively. Her gaze fell on Yun Shishir with evil intentions. Did she bring any products? Or was she invited by the brand? That's impossible. After all, the one who came all the way here just to get on the red carpet should be your artist. Ahem. Qin Zhou was amused. Lin Ji was angry, but she tried to restrain herself. Am I wrong? I'm sorry. Our Shishir has received an invitation from the brand. As soon as Qin Zhou finished speaking, Lin Ji said arrogantly, impossible. He raised his eyebrows disapprovingly. What's impossible? How could she have received an invitation? She's just a newcomer. What right does she have to receive an invitation from the brand? Qin Zhou looked past her impatiently. He did not want to waste any more time on her. He turned around and called out to Shishir, Shishir, come with me to choose your gown. With that, he entered the VIP lounge. Yun Shishir nodded. Just as she was about to follow her manager to the VIP area, Lin Ji's figure flashed and blocked her path. You're not allowed to enter. Yun Shishir's brows furrowed slightly as she raised her eyes to look at the arrogant Lin Ji blocking her way. She was a little surprised. What do you mean? Where's the invitation? Lin Ji opened her palm. Without an invitation, you don't have the right to step into this place. You don't even have the right to enter the VIP room. She had disliked her for a long time. Therefore, Lin Ji swore to teach her a lesson. She didn't want a newcomer who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. She was her senior, but she didn't take her seriously. Of course, she had to teach her a lesson. Yun Shishir was neither angry nor shocked. She walked around her as if she did not hear her. Lin Ji was even angrier, and blocked her way again. Where are you going? Senior Lin Ji, please step aside. Yun Shishir smiled politely, However, there was a faint smile on his face and a mocking look in his eyes. Lin Ji was completely enraged by her gaze. She blurted out, go back. This is not a place for you to be. Who do you think you are? Do you really think you're a big shot? Yun Shishir ignored the sarcasm in her words, but the smile on her face slowly faded. When she looked up, her eyes were frosty as she stared at her coldly. Suddenly, she let out a mocking laugh. You're the one who thinks you're a big shot, right? Senior Lin Ji. Chapter 1445. Lin Ji laughed coldly and looked her up and down with disdain. She said expressionlessly, some female stars are trying to use fashion resources to climb up the ranks. Yun Shishir, do you think I don't know what tricks you're playing? There are so many dirty newcomers like you in the entertainment industry. What wouldn't they do to climb up the ranks? Don't think I don't know about your dirty tricks. She paused and continued sarcastically, do you think the fashion show is a market? You think you can come whenever you want? This is Fashion Week, not a place for you to play house. If you want to play, go home. Don't embarrass yourself here. She looked at Yun Shishir after she finished speaking, but there was no trace of anger on her face. The current her was truly unfazed by honor and disgrace. No matter how big the humiliation, she could face it calmly. Are you done talking? Yun Shishir asked indifferently after Lin Ji finished speaking. It was as if she wasn't the one who had insulted her. You're really thick-skinned. The more Lin Ji looked at her nonchalant face, the angrier she got. She hated such an elegant and cold face the most. Just like that, she felt as if she was a clown jumping up and down with her hair standing on end after saying those humiliating words just now. She felt like she had become a joke. Indeed, Yun Shishir looked at her as if she was looking at a joke. Lin Ji, speaking of thick-skinned, you've shown me what it means to lie through your teeth. Yun Shishir's lips suddenly curled into a faint smile. Coupled with the makeup on her face, she looked like a graceful and elegant model of nobility with a threatening air of nobility. She was half a head taller than Yun Shishir. Hence, when Yun Shishir imitated Lin Ji and raised her charming chin slightly, Lin Ji had no choice but to look up at her. This made her feel inferior to Yun Shishir's aura. I received an invitation from the brand and came to watch the fashion show. If you have a problem with it, what's the use of looking for me? If you think I'm not good enough for the show, do you think you're good enough? After Yun Shishir finished speaking, she coldly sized her up again. Then, a trace of disgust appeared on her face. In terms of temperament, I'm actually very suspicious. How did you become the spokesperson of Louis Vuitton? Comparing your temperament with mine, you must be joking. Her tone was extremely arrogant. She didn't try to hide her arrogance at all. She returned the humiliation that Lin Ji had just given her. Lin Ji flew into a rage out of humiliation. Her face turned red as she glared at him. What did you say? I said, in terms of temperament, you don't deserve to be compared to me. Yun Shishir paused for a moment. Then, she elegantly took out an invitation from her handbag and waved it in front of her. This is an invitation. Open your eyes and look carefully. Lin Ji saw it clearly. It was indeed an invitation from Louis Vuitton. Did she really get an invitation from Louis Vuitton? Lin Ji froze on the spot. Just as Yun Shishir was about to enter the VIP room, Lin Ji suddenly clenched her fists and grabbed her arm. She said sharply, so what if you got an invitation? Who knows if this invitation is real or fake? Lin Ji, what do you want? Don't be rude. Chapter 1446. In that case, it's fine if you want to pick the gowns, but you'll have to wait until I'm done before you pick the rest. Yun Shishir was instantly enraged by Lin Ji's words. Lin Ji's words were simple and straightforward. She wanted to express that she was the first to arrive, so she had the right to choose the gowns prepared by the brand first. Secondly, Yun Shishir would get to pick the remaining gowns first. This was a huge humiliation. Lin Ji actually wanted her to pick the remaining gowns. Yun Shishir's beautiful eyes widened in shock. She did not expect the other to make such an outrageous request so boldly. She coldly retorted, on what basis? Why should I? Yun Shishir said expressionlessly, why should I let you pick first? Your words are too much. Why should I? If you must ask why, then it's because my status is higher than yours. Because my net worth is higher than yours. Just based on these 2 points, you have to give in to me. Is this answer enough? Lin Ji raised her head arrogantly. The space between her eyebrows was incomparably cold and aggressive, leaving no room for negotiation. Yun Shishir's cold gaze fell on the hand that was holding her wrist tightly. She said coldly, let go. Qin Zhou walked out of the VIP room and saw this scene. His eyes flickered, and he rushed up and swatted Lin Ji's hand away. Let go of your dirty hands. Don't touch our Shishir. His protectiveness for Yun Shishir was evident in his words and was on the verge of being revealed. Lin Ji took a few steps back in shock. She raised her head abruptly and looked at Qin Zhou in disbelief. She was obviously unwilling to accept this. President Qin, what are you doing? I should be asking you what you're doing. keep your hands clean. Don't touch our Shusher. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Qin Zhou paused. He glared at her menacingly and said in a cold voice, Lin Ji, was I too polite to you just now? Do you think I'm good-tempered and easy to talk to, so you're bullying my artist? I'm warning you, you better know your place. If you dare to bully Shusher again, I won't forgive you. President Qin. Lin Ji cried out in surprise. Clearly, she found it hard to accept Qin Zhou's harsh words. However, Qin Zhou smiled coldly. I have many methods that are enough to ruin your reputation in one night. Lin Ji, if you don't believe me, just wait and see. Today is the last chance I'm giving you. If I find out that you've bullied Shusher again, don't blame me for being ruthless. After saying that, Qin Zhou grabbed Yun Shusher's hand and turned to enter the VIP room, leaving Lin Ji standing there, dumbfounded and petrified. In the VIP room, Qin Zhou poked Yun Shusher's head angrily. Little idiot, why are you being bullied again when I'm not here for a while? Yun Shusher was also a little depressed. She lowered her head and sulked. Qin Zhou was still angry. If you meet that Lin Ji in the future, don't be polite. If she scolds you once, you'll scold her 10 times. If she touches one of your fingers, you'll break all 10 of her fingers. If anything happens, I'll take responsibility. Yun Shusher was petrified. She couldn't help but look into the distance. How could she not tell that Qin Zhou was such a violent person? Chapter 1447. Qin Zhou was still angry. If you meet Lin Ji in the future, don't go easy on her. If she scolds you, you'll scold her back 10 times. If she touches one of your fingers, you'll break all 10 of her fingers. If anything happens, I'll take responsibility for it. Yun Shusher was petrified. She couldn't help but look into the distance. How could she not tell that Qin Zhou was such a violent person? There were 3 VIP rooms in Louis Vuitton's studio. Qin Zhou had specially brought Yun Shusher to the show early, so they took one room. Lin Ji took one room and started to urge the brand's representative to bring the gowns over so that she could pick first. Usually, one would have to change 2 or 3 outfits for a show. The bigger brands would have at least 4 outfits. Lin Ji was greedy and wanted to pick the best ones first, leaving the rest for Yun Shusher to pick. However, would Qin Zhou let her have her way? Impossible. Moreover, who was Qin Zhou? In the past, when she was managing Gu Xingze, she had the connections of all the big brands in her hands. If she wanted to pick a gown, she should let Yun Shusher pick first, and Lin Ji would pick the rest. Moreover, Qin Zhou had helped Yun Shusher get the role of Louis Vuitton's brand ambassador in Greater China. Although this news hadn't been announced to the public yet, the contract had been officially signed. As the prospective ambassador, Louis Vuitton naturally had to create a good image for Yun Shusher. Of course, Lin Ji didn't know about this. She really thought that Yun Shusher had come all the way to the red carpet. If she knew that Yun Shusher had accepted the invitation as the brand ambassador, she would be so angry that she would vomit blood. Therefore, when the representative of Louis Vuitton came over with the gowns, Lin Ji immediately went up to him and pretended to be reserved, saying that she wanted to pick the gown first. In the end, the representative politely said that she couldn't pick first. She would pick later. Although his words were polite and tactful, Lin Ji felt like she had been slapped in the face. She was a little unconvinced, but she pretended to be calm and asked, could it be that there's a bigger fashion superstar? That person nodded and said politely, we have to pick out the gown for the brand ambassador of the new season. Sorry for being rude. Lin Ji was embarrassed, but when she heard that the brand ambassador had the first pick, she didn't dare to object. After all, the identity of a brand ambassador was indeed more valuable than hers. However, when Lin Ji saw the person in charge lead the person holding the gown into Yun Shusher's VIP room, she was so shocked that her eyes almost popped out. She was shocked and immediately rushed up. With an ugly expression, she asked, "Did you enter the wrong room?" "No. This VIP room is used by Yunshishir. In China, she's just a newbie." You're not joking, are you?" The embarrassment and disbelief on Lin Ji's face were evident. She thought that the person in charge had made a mistake. Unexpectedly, the other party replied, "I didn't make a mistake. Louis Vuitton's brand ambassador for the new season in Greater China is Ms. Yunshishir." When Lin Ji heard this, her vision went dark and she almost lost her balance. The corners of her mouth twitched and she smiled awkwardly. "Are you sure?" Yunshishir. She's the brand ambassador for the new season. Until now, there had only been one brand ambassador for Louis Vuitton in Greater China, and that was Gu Xingze. Chapter 1448. Even if she was the spokesperson for Louis Vuitton, it was just a product line under Louis Vuitton. This had already made many female celebrities grit their teeth in jealousy. To put it bluntly, she had to resort to underhanded means to snatch the resources from the other party's hands in order to take this endorsement deal. Lin Ji bit her lip hard, her eyes red with jealousy. Why? She couldn't figure it out. Lin Ji glared at the gowns, her face full of indignation. Qin Zhou opened the door and saw the person in charge. He shook his hand politely and exchanged a few pleasantries. He glanced at Lin Ji from the corner of his eye and smiled. "Hey! Why are you standing at the door? Why, do you want to try on the gowns first? But let our Yunshishir try them on first. We'll send them to you after she's done choosing." Lin Ji stomped her foot angrily. "Humph." She turned around and went back to the VIP room. Qin Zhou rolled his eyes seductively and closed the door after welcoming the gowns in. Yunshishir flipped through the gowns. There were a total of 10 gowns sent to her. These were the best of the best, so she had to pick first. Qin Zhou let her pick 5 gowns first. 5? So many. Please, don't tell me you want to walk through the entire fashion week with just one gown. Qin Zhou glanced at her with disdain. Yunshishir shook her head. Suddenly, she picked up a haute couture gown and compared it to her body. Fortunately, she was tall. Otherwise, with these European and American brands, which were designed according to the model's height of 1.78 meters, it would be difficult to acclimatize to an Asian with a smaller frame. Lin Ji, who was only 1.58 meters tall, would probably cover her face and cry when it was her turn to pick out the gown. She couldn't even bring out the aura of these gowns. She didn't even know how high her stilettos would have to be to bring out her aura. Qin Zhou also went forward to pick out the gowns for her. However, no matter how he picked, he wasn't satisfied. This one doesn't have an aura. This one's color scheme is too old-fashioned. This one is too gaudy. The experienced Qin Zhou passed on a few gowns. In the end, he picked out 2 that were barely acceptable. Yunshishir was in tears. "Boss Qin, you're really picky." Qin Zhou raised his eyebrows, glanced at her, and said coldly, "I'm not the one who picked it. Some of the gowns are too petite and can't bring out the aura." An arrow through the heart. Yunshishir was deeply hurt and wiped her tears. But it wasn't her fault. European and American models had broad shoulders, and their frames were not small. Although she was tall, she looked delicate and boneless. These gowns were not custom-made, so they did not bring out her aura. "Try this one again." Qin Zhou carefully selected another one and threw it to her. Yunshishir gave it a try. Qin Zhou circled around her, crossed his arms, and looked her up and down. Then, he reluctantly said, "Not bad. Barely okay. Your frame is really small." Qin Zhou narrowed his eyes. "But there's nothing I can do about it. I was born with it. Just as he finished speaking, someone knocked on the door. Qin-zhou thought it was Lin Ji looking for trouble again. He walked over with an unfriendly expression. When he opened the door, he saw a fashionably dressed woman speaking in authentic Italian. Hello. A gentleman has specially customized a gown for Miss Yunshishir. Is it convenient for you to send it in now? Who is it? Mr. Mu. Chapter 1449. Are you sure this gown was sent here? Yes, sir. I can't be wrong. Come in. The man brought the gown in. It was a high-class gown with a cheongsam design. The gown was embellished with blue and white porcelain, which complemented her temperament and figure. However, compared to other gowns, this gown was very conservative. Other than the shoulders, every part of the gown was covered. Qin-zhou lifted the gown and looked at it. He broke out in a cold sweat. This gown was beautiful, but there was nothing special about it. It was suitable for a fashion show, but it was too plain to walk the red carpet. It should at least show off some of her long legs. It was said that it was tailor-made according to Yunshishir's figure. Mr. Mu. Yunshishir touched the gown. She suddenly thought of who this Mr. Mu was. Qin-zhou helped Yunshishir into the gown. However, when she was trying it on, there was a knock on the door again. Who is it? Qin-zhou walked over and opened the door. He saw two people standing outside with gowns carefully. They were looking at each other. Qin-zhou was stunned. He looked at them again, and the corners of his lips twitched. Hello, we are here to deliver a custom-made gown for Miss Yunshishir. Hello, we are here to deliver a custom-made gown for Miss Yunshishir. The two of them said almost at the same time. As soon as they finished speaking, the two of them were shocked. They looked at each other again and judged each other. Qin-zhou asked hesitantly, who sent the gown? Mr. Gu. Mr. Yun. The two of them spoke at the same time again. Then, they looked at each other again, as if they were competing secretly. Qin-zhou sighed and held his forehead. He waved his hand and stepped aside. Send it in. The two of them squeezed through the doorway and fought to send the gown in. Hence, when Yunshishir stepped out of the dressing room after trying on her gown, she saw 3 more sets of gowns being sent into the spacious VIP room. The corners of her eyes twitched violently. One of them was a gift from Mr. Yun. It was a luxurious European-style haute couture. It was Louis Vuitton's new autumn collection. It was tailor-made, and the price was not cheap. The other 2 sets were gifts from Mr. Gu. Qin-zhou glanced at the style and immediately recognized that these 2 gowns were Gu Xing's aesthetic. He took another look at the design and was immediately speechless. These 2 sets of clothes were also custom-made and were not cheap. Just one of the rose-colored clothes was as high as 8 figures. How extravagant! Qin-zhou was speechless. Gu Xingze really put a lot of thought into Yunshishir. These 2 outfits were the works of a master. Although they weren't Louis Vuitton's new models, both sets were out of print. Only Gu Xingze, who had been friends with Louis Vuitton for many years, could have gotten it. Qin-zhou took a look at it. Because it was tailor-made, he guessed that Yunshishir would definitely look good in it. However, in comparison, the cheapao that Mr. Mu had sent over paled in comparison. Too conservative. It was not revealing at all. However, when walking the red carpet, it was important to be eye-catching. Therefore, Qin-zhou quickly asked Yunshishir to hurry up and change into it. Yunshishir had just changed into 2 outfits when there was a knock on the door again. Qin-zhou was stunned again and looked at the door. Who had sent the gown this time? Qin-zhou walked to the door. As soon as he opened it, he heard whispers outside. Chapter 1450. Oh my God! This gown is so beautiful. I heard this is Mark's. It's Jacob's work. It's so beautiful. I love this design element. It's Mark's out-of-print work. Qin Zhou opened the door and saw a man dressed like a gentleman standing at the door with a high-end fashion gown in his hands. Meanwhile, the stylists in the studio surrounded the gown one after another, their eyes filled with amazement and envy. Compared to this gown, the 10 gowns sent by the brand for this show were nothing. This gown was the real deal. It was breathtaking. Hello. Is it convenient for you to send the gown in now? Who sent this? Again. The man was also confused. Qin Zhou said seriously, what I mean is, who sent this gown? Hello, sir. This is the gown sent by Mr. Gong. It's an out-of-print Louis Vuitton gown. Qin Zhou was speechless. Who was Mr. Gong? When the gown was sent in, Yun Shishir happened to walk out after trying on the gown. When she saw that someone had sent in another piece of fashion, her legs went weak. Who sent this gown? Yun Shishir looked around. However, with just one glance, she was deeply stunned by this high-end gown. It was so beautiful. It was really beautiful. She was deeply amazed. This gown was simply breathtaking. This gown was different from the previous ones. It was a floor-length gown. However, the gown had a fluffy design, which accentuated her exquisite waistline. The most eye-catching part of this gown was the ink and wash elements throughout. The gradual ink color, from the design of the snow-white shoulders to the fluffy skirt, looked as if it had jumped out of an ink and wash painting from afar. It was like an immortal that had been banished from the mortal world. It was simply beautiful. It was otherworldly. It was truly otherworldly. Among all the gowns sent in from the VIP room, this was probably the only one that suited her the most. Even a picky person like Qin Zhou was deeply amazed by her beauty. Who was Mr. Gong? His taste was simply indescribable. This gown was perfect for walking the red carpet. There would be a China style show at this year's Fashion Week, and this gown would fit the theme perfectly. It would definitely attract everyone's attention. Putting everything else aside, this gown alone was enough to guarantee that it would make the headlines. It was not because of anything else, but because this dress was a priceless and magnificent treasure. It was said that this gown was Mark's out-of-print design and was worth 9 figures. What an extravagant move. Qin Zhou could not help but sigh. Who exactly is this Mr. Gong? Mr. Gong. Yun Shishir was a little surprised. Was this gown sent by Mr. Gong? Yes. Qin Zhou nodded and glanced at her. Is this Mr. Gong your friend? Yun Shishir was stunned for a while. Then, her gaze fell on the dress and she smiled knowingly. She seemed to have guessed who this Mr. Gong was. Little Jia must have sent it over. But how did he know that she was at Fashion Week and that he would deliver a dress at such an opportune time? Shishir, try this gown on. You should look beautiful in it. Qin Zhou urged her. Yun Shishir nodded and carried the gown into the fitting room. About 10 minutes later, Yun Shishir changed into the gown with the help of her assistant. She lifted the hem of the dress and walked out of the fitting room. Chapter 1451. Yun Shishir was dressed in a gorgeous gown. It had a snow-white background with a gradual ink and wash pattern that extended from her waist all the way to the hem of the gown. Coupled with her silky black hair that reached her waist, her gorgeous makeup, and the rich Chinese style, she looked dazzling. She was too beautiful, so beautiful, that no one could find a single flaw in it. Even Qin Zhou, who had an exceptionally sharp gaze, couldn't find any flaws in it. It was as if this gown was made for her. At that moment, Qin Zhou couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Who exactly was Mr. Gong, who had chosen this gown? He had such great taste. When this gown was worn by Yun Shishir, it instantly captured everyone's attention. Walking on the red carpet would definitely be a sight to behold. This gown was extremely compatible with Yun Shishir. Other people probably wouldn't be able to bring out the aura of this gown. As for the other gowns, it would probably be very difficult to bring out Yun Shishir's fairy-like beauty and elegance. A rare satisfied smile appeared on Qin Zhou's face. He praised, "Shishir, you look so beautiful in this gown." Yun Shishir blushed charmingly. "Boss Qin, it's rare for you to praise me like this." "That's because it's really beautiful. I can't find a single flaw in it." Yun Shishir was a little surprised. Even Qin Zhou was praising her so openly. She must be really beautiful. She walked in front of the mirror. However, when the mirror reflected her fairy-like gown, Yun Shishir was stunned. Oh my god, it was really beautiful. "Shishir, you'll wear this gown on the red carpet tonight," Qin Zhou instructed. Yun Shishir nodded. Then, she glanced at the other gowns and asked tentatively, "Then, what about the other gowns that were sent here? As for the rest, we'll leave them for the show. I feel that the effects of the other gowns are about the same. They're not as stunning as this one. You can pick 4 gowns." Qin Zhou left the choice in her hands. Yun Shishir picked 4 pieces. While she was choosing, her cell phone suddenly rang. Yun Shishir hurriedly picked up the phone. Gong Jie's mysterious and magnetic voice came from the other end. "Baby, do you like the gift I sent you?" When Yun Shishir heard his voice, she squinted her eyes and smiled. "Shao Jie, it's you." Gong Jie snorted coldly and pretended to be angry. "Now you recognize my voice. I'm so touched." "Hey, don't make fun of me," Yun Shishir complained. Then, her eyes curved slightly. "I've received your gift. I like it very much." "Thank you." "For what?" Gong Jie was a little displeased. He didn't like her saying thank you to him. It seemed very distant. "In the future, you're not allowed to say thank you or sorry to me. These 2 words, understand?" "All right." Yun Shishir naturally listened to him. "Shao Jie, this gown is really beautiful. Your taste is really unique." "Of course. I'm very picky when it comes to beauty." Translator, Atlas Studios editor. Atlas Studios. In the luxurious presidential suite of the Manhattan Hotel, Gong Jie stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window in a bathrobe, looking at the dark city in the distance. He held the phone in his hand, but his tone was tender and affectionate. "A beautiful dress can only show its value when worn by you." Yun Shishir blushed. His words were full of love. Even Gong Jie couldn't feel how much he loved Yun Shishir. He wanted to spoil her to the bone. Chapter 1452. As soon as he found out about Yun Shishir's announcement, he began to look for a gown to wear on the red carpet. After looking around, he finally picked this one. He had spent a high price to buy this gown. At first, the financier was unwilling. This gown was a priceless treasure. Someone had once offered a 9-figure sum for it, but they did not get what they wanted. However, who was Gong Jie? He refused a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. He held a gun to the financier's head and half bought and half snatched the gown. In his eyes, only this gown was worthy of his sister. Other than his sister, no one else was worthy. His usual domineering style was undoubtedly reflected. As long as sister likes it. Gong Jie paused for a moment and said, "It's just right for you to wear on the red carpet." He wanted his sister to appear beautiful in front of the camera. Yun Shishir could not help but laugh. "Won't this be too high profile?" "What are you afraid of? Sister is so beautiful. Is there anything wrong with being high profile?" Gong Jie retorted confidently. Yun Shishir was instantly speechless and could only smile. "Shao Jie, I'm going to do my styling. I'll text you when I'm back." Okay. Yun Shishir hung up the phone and was pushed by Qin Zhou to do the last step of her styling. After changing into the gown, she had to adjust her hairstyle. Qin Zhou instructed the stylist to give her a classic and gorgeous hairstyle. Coupled with the ink gown, she was simply too beautiful. Thus, when she walked out of the VIP room, she coincidentally bumped into Lin Ji, who had also changed into her gown. When Lin Ji saw Yun Shishir in her gorgeous gown, she was stunned. In an instant, she felt that the European-style gown on her paled in comparison. She had spent a lot of effort. In the end, when she walked out and saw Yun Shishir's gorgeous aura, she suddenly felt that her gown was too plain no matter how she looked at it. She was completely outclassed. They hadn't even stepped on the red carpet, but the difference between them was obvious. Lin Ji thought that Yun Shishir's gown was a gift from the brand and felt that Yun Shishir had stolen her limelight. Thus, she said unhappily, "This gown should have been mine." She was being unreasonable, but Yun Shishir couldn't be bothered with her and didn't even look at her. Lin Ji felt even more indignant. She said angrily, "I should have picked the gown first. Yun Shishir, take it off and let me wear it." Qin Zhou couldn't take it anymore. "Lin Ji, are you crazy? Did he take medicine when he went out? Don't be unreasonable here." Unreasonable? Lin Ji's face flushed red from Qin Zhou's scolding. "Qin Zhou, don't think you can bully others just because you have some background and tricks up your sleeve," she argued. "You're clearly bullying me, aren't you? Why should Yun Shishir have the first pick of the gown sent by the brand? Isn't it just to make fun of me? Make fun of you?" When Qin Zhou heard that, he sneered. "Lin Ji, how shameless are you that I have to put in the effort to make fun of you? Don't think too highly of yourself. You're making a fool of yourself." "I don't care." Lin Ji felt extremely indignant and started to throw a tantrum. "Anyway, this gown belongs to me. Give it back to me. Get lost." Qin Zhou had completely lost his patience. He waved his hand as if he was shooing away an annoying fly. He was so annoyed by this Lin Ji. Chapter 1453. Lin Ji stared at him in a daze. Her eyes reddened when she heard Qin Zhou tell her to get lost so rudely. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she choked out, "You guys are too much. You guys are too much." Qin Zhou imitated Lin Ji's coquettish and pretentious face to the point that it was carved into the wood. The people in the studio couldn't help but laugh. Lin Ji's face grew paler and paler as she glared at him with bloodshot eyes. If looks could kill, Qin Zhou would have died 10,000 times over. Yun Shishir's face turned cold. How could Lin Ji be so shameless? She rarely used the word shameless to describe a girl. However, Lin Ji was worthy of the word. Female celebrities in the entertainment industry were all like that. If they had a chance to climb up the ranks, they would use all means and resources to their advantage. "Oh, don't show such a disgusting face. Don't you feel disgusted? This gown doesn't belong to you. Even if it did, such a noble gown would look like a cheap gown on you. Why don't you take a look at your own body? Your legs are so short. Can they hold up the aura of this gown?" Qin Zhou mocked her mercilessly. Lin Ji's face was completely peeled off, leaving nothing behind. Lin Ji's lips trembled, but she couldn't refute him. Yun Shishir was too dazzling at this moment. Even if she didn't want to admit it, she had to admit that this gown suited Yun Shishir very well. It was too beautiful. She couldn't refute him at all. People were like this. Once they faced someone who was more dazzling and outstanding than them, they would feel ashamed of their inferiority. At the same time, they wouldn't have the confidence to argue. He could only watch helplessly as Qin Zhou led Yun Shishir into a luxurious Bentley and sped off. Lin Ji watched them leave with a vicious gaze. She was so angry that she gritted her teeth. In the car, Qin Zhou edited the photo that Yun Shishir had taken in the VIP room and uploaded it to Weibo. There was a professional retoucher in the team. With a little bit of effort, he adjusted the color of the image and uploaded it. With Yun Shishir's unique condition, she didn't need to spend too much effort in the post-production process. She just needed to adjust the color a little and it was done. As soon as the photo was uploaded, the media, who had been on standby, immediately began to publicize it. Beauty reaches new heights. Beautiful beyond the heavens. Photo killer. The draft was inseparable from these praises, changing the soup but not the medicine. Weibo instantly blew up as well. Yun Shishir had been in the limelight recently. Coupled with her participation in the Milan Fashion Week, she was in the limelight. The first thing Qin Zhou did was to upload the beautiful photos taken by the studio and seize the initiative. Thus, the prelude to the Fashion Week began. Manhattan Hotel, Presidential Suite. Gong Jia sat on the sofa, browsing Weibo. He did not have a Weibo account before, but when he learned that Yun Shishir had opened a verified account, he secretly registered an account and only followed Yun Shishir and Yun Shishir's studio accounts. Yun Shishir's studio account was carefully managed by Qin Zhou. Therefore, he saw the photo that Yun Shishir's studio had released immediately. Chapter 1454. She lifted her chin slightly. Her meticulously styled hair made her face look as fair as jade. From the moment he saw this gown, he was certain that his sister would be stunningly beautiful in it. Hence, he took a photo of it without hesitation. However, it turned out that this gown was indeed quite suitable. Gong Jia could not help but smile when he saw this photo. Sis is so beautiful. He sighed softly, not bothering to hide the amazement in his eyes. Yun Shishir walking the red carpet in the gown he had sent her made him feel extremely satisfied. On the other hand, a certain man at the airport was holding his phone. When he clicked on a Weibo post and saw Yun Shishir posing in the ink-style gown in the photo, his eyes darkened. Muyaja could not help but furrow his brows deeply. This gown was too revealing. Although the skirt was long and covered a pair of beautiful legs, due to the strapless design, almost all the scenery below her shoulders and above her breasts were exposed. He did not like her dressing so conspicuously. All the beauty on her body should be enjoyed by him alone. Hence, when he learned that she was going to the fashion show, he immediately sent someone to send a gown to her at the thought of those female celebrities wearing revealing outfits in the past fashion shows. Only a pair of fragrant shoulders were exposed, and the rest was covered tightly. He thought that she would wear it on the red carpet when she learned that he was the one who had sent it. However, the photo she uploaded was of this gown. This made him especially unhappy. It was too revealing. He did not like it. He especially did not like her dressing like this. When Minyu rushed over with the plane ticket, he saw Muyaja in a terrible mood. His hand was gripping his phone so tightly that it turned white and the veins on the back of his hand were bulging. Oh. Boss seems to be very angry. Minyu stole a glance from the corner of his eye and saw Yun Shishir's stunning photo on the phone screen. His eyes were filled with amazement. Muyaja sensed his gaze and looked up abruptly to give him a warning glare. Feeling awkward, Minyu immediately pretended not to see it. He whistled and looked around. Have you sent that gown over? Yes. I've sent it over. Minyu immediately replied, I immediately called the higher-ups of Louis Vuitton after you gave me your instructions. I specially selected a relatively conservative gown. Is it the Cheongsam you showed me? That's right. How? Isn't Madam wearing it? As soon as Minyu finished speaking, he saw Muyaja's face darken, so he obediently shut his mouth. All right, Madam must not be wearing it. That's why the boss is so angry. Boss, Madam looks great in this gown. Minyu exclaimed in admiration. However, it didn't matter if he didn't say this, but once he did, a certain old cadre's face became even gloomier. Min Yu's bootlicking was definitely from the wrong angle. Looking at Mu Yaja's darkening face, Min Yu decided to keep his mouth shut. The more he spoke, the more wrong he felt. Mu Yaja turned off his phone and boarded the plane. It was about a 10-hour journey. This stupid woman, I must settle the score with her. Yu Yu sat in front of the computer and scrolled through Weibo. She saw the photo uploaded by Yun Shishir's studio. Her first reaction was that it was exceptionally stunning. Chapter 1455. His mommy looked stunning in this gown. She looked like a real fairy and was indescribably beautiful. His second reaction, however, was disappointment. He had clearly sent a gown to his mommy. Why didn't she wear it? He had spent so much time choosing the dress so that his mommy could wear it to the fashion show. However, in the photo that was posted on Weibo, she was wearing a different dress. He couldn't help but feel a little disappointed and frustrated. Xiao Yichen stood at the side and looked at Yun Shishir's elegant and luxurious posture in the photo. He instantly turned into a fanboy. Mommy is so beautiful, it took him a long time to resist the urge to pounce on the screen and lick it. Yu Yu glanced at him coldly. Mu Yichen, you're really promising. Xiao Yichen defended himself, feeling wronged. Why? Mommy is so beautiful. Don't you think so? Yu Yu was stunned. His gaze fell on the photo again. As he looked at his mommy in the photo, his eyes could not help but become infatuated. Beautiful, he couldn't help but sigh. Although his mommy did not wear the gown he had sent and was rather disappointed, she did look beautiful in it. The little lad instantly felt satisfied. Just as he was still staring at the beautiful photo in a daze and could not take his eyes off it, his phone rang. When he picked up the call, he could hear Gong Jia's slightly smug tone. Gong Jia, little nephew, have you seen the beautiful photo your mommy uploaded on Weibo? Yu Yu, he was stunned for a moment and then narrowed his eyes suspiciously. Are you following mommy's Weibo, too? Aha! Gong Jia admitted it frankly. His Weibo account was created for Yun Shishir, and he only followed the accounts of Yun Shishir and her studio. He only followed Yun Shishir's updates. Hearing his smug tone, Yun Tianyu wondered who he was. Being meticulous and intelligent, he immediately smelled something fishy. Did you give mommy this gown? Aha! Gong Jia's tone became even more smug as he asked smugly, the gown your mommy is wearing is carefully selected by me. Is she beautiful? It was actually him. In an instant, Yu Yu felt indignant. It was not perfect. He thought that Yun Shishir's gown was arranged by the brand, but he did not expect it to be a gift from Gong Jia. He was obviously here to show off his prowess. Ah, I can't accept this. Uncle, are you showing off your aesthetic sense to me? Yu Yu snorted. Gong Jia smiled as well. Her smile made the boy feel even more uncomfortable. It was sour. Yu Yu unceremoniously hung up the call. He crossed his arms and leaned against the computer chair angrily as he stared at Yun Shishir's beautiful photo. His little face looked like a pink bun. Xiao Yichen, on the other hand, was still sprawled in front of the computer as he stared at Yun Shishir's beautiful photo in infatuation. Holding his little face, his eyes turned into crescents. Mommy is so beautiful. So beautiful. So beautiful, Yu Yu was flustered. Shut up. With that, he closed Weibo, stood up, walked to the bookshelf, grabbed a reference book, and sat on the sofa to read it. Xiao Yichen muttered under his breath, "What's wrong? Why are you angry again for no reason? Be quiet." Yu Yu could not help rebuking him and continued reading. Chapter 1456. By the time Qin Zhou and Yun Shishir arrived at the venue, there were already quite a number of female celebrities present, even though it was considered early. However, these female celebrities weren't big shots. After all, big shots were all about being the last to appear. The later they appeared, the more prominent their status would be. These female celebrities all relied on media invitations to get into Fashion Week. They were all there to ride on the popularity of Fashion Week. At Fashion Week, the stars were shining and the lights were flashing. Various female celebrities were competing with each other among the media. They were constantly styling and accepting the baptism of the media spotlight. Getting into Fashion Week was like getting a diploma from the Fashion University. Their agents also got a ticket to negotiate overseas brand endorsements. It was much easier than working hard to appear in a literary film that no one cared about and squeezing onto the red carpet of an international film festival. However, how to improve one's fashion skills in just 7 days depended on each person's attainments. A show lasted at most 10 minutes. Before the show started, the celebrities had to socialize with various celebrities. Since it was Fashion Week, watching the show was of utmost importance. Just like domestic press conferences, there was an unwritten rule that all shows would start half an hour later than the scheduled time. According to a luxury brand's PR, this 30 minutes was specially reserved for the guests to socialize. For example, some celebrities would use this time to get close to the brand's executives and greet the good sisters that they met by chance. In order to watch the show, the celebrities spent a lot of energy on dressing and styling. In addition to carefully choosing clothes and matching styles, just combing their hair and makeup would take a few hours. The actual time they had to watch the show was only enough to listen to a few songs. Usually, a brand press conference would last about 5 minutes. There would be more than 30 sets of the latest clothes on display. Some big shows would have more clothes. The models would go on stage one after another and it would be over in 10 minutes at most. When the show was over, many celebrities would immediately get up and leave in a hurry because they had to rush to the next show. Some celebrities were also in a hurry to greet the media at the door. Qin Zhou arrived early with Yun Shishir to introduce her to the top executives of various fashion brands, producers, and directors. After all, she was a newcomer. Although Qin Zhou had invested a lot of resources in her, she still had many shortcomings. In just 10 minutes, Yun Shishir was introduced to the 3 Hollywood investors by Qin Zhou. A grand introduction was made in front of them. The investors were very satisfied with Yun Shishir's temperament and qualifications. Yun Shishir's face was a classic beauty. In Hollywood, she was very popular. Qin Zhou's social skills were absolutely top-notch. He negotiated a job for Yun Shishir on the spot. Recently, Hollywood was preparing to shoot a commercial blockbuster with the theme of American heroism. In recent years, the backbone of Hollywood had been increasingly migrating to the mainland market. In terms of casting, they paid more attention to adding Asian faces. With the connections he had accumulated in Hollywood, he managed to secure a role for her on the spot. Although she was just a supporting role with a small screen, being able to show her face in Hollywood and further her studies was also the best way to raise her status. Chapter 1457. 10 minutes before the show started, Lin Ji and a group of female celebrities arrived. It wasn't that they were putting on airs. As a rising star in the entertainment industry, Lin Ji couldn't wait to get to the show as soon as possible. She wanted to grab more attention and interact with more celebrities. However, Lin Ji and the other female celebrities were delayed at the entrance for a long time because of a problem with their passes. By the time she rushed to the show, Yun Shishir had already finished taking photos with various celebrities and was seated at the show. Unfortunately, just as Lin Ji was about to rush to the scene to attract more attention from the media, Han Yuyan arrived. Han Yuyan was already a senior figure in the fashion industry. She had worked with many famous brands and celebrities. She could be considered a veteran in the industry. With her around, Lin Ji couldn't steal the limelight at all. She didn't dare to. With Han Yuyan's status, even if she wanted to, she didn't have the guts. Therefore, she could only watch as the media rushed to Han Yuyen with their cameras raised. Han Yuyen stood on the red carpet in a custom-made Chanel gown. At this moment, she was the absolute star of the show. Many domestic and foreign media surrounded her like stars surrounding the moon. Her every move was the focus of everyone's attention. In contrast, Lin Ji looked calm and at ease. At this moment, in front of her, there were many people at the entrance. As a rising star in the fashion industry, no one paid attention to her. Moreover, her gown was left behind by Yun Shishir. Her starlight was dim and no one cared. Lin Ji hated Yun Shishir to the core. She wanted to cut this stumbling block into pieces. If she hadn't stepped in, she would have been the one to wear that gown. Then, in today's show, with that gown, she should have been the center of attention. But now, Lin Ji looked at the scene where no one cared about her. She felt so wrong that she wanted to cry. Her assistant suddenly saw a push notification on Weibo. She clicked on it and saw a photo of Yun Shishir and the Empress Dowager. She showed the phone to Lin Ji. Lin Ji took a look and her eyes turned red with anger. Empress Dowager was just a nickname. The Empress Dowager's real name was Karl Lagerfeld. He was the artistic director of Chanel and was regarded as the mascot of Fashion Week. There was a famous saying in the fashion industry. He was not a real man until he reached the Great Wall. It would be a pity if he could not take a photo with the Empress Dowager. No matter how famous a celebrity was, they would try their best to ask the brand's PR to arrange a photo with the Empress Dowager. Yun Shishir's photo with the Empress Dowager had stolen the limelight. Qin Zhou had a close relationship with Chanel's PR department. Therefore, he arranged for Yun Shishir to meet Karl. However, to Qin Zhou's surprise, Yun Shishir's English was unexpectedly proficient, and she was able to talk fluently with various celebrities. This was something that Lin Ji couldn't compare to. Lin Ji's English was close to zero. Lin Ji wasn't the only one. Many domestic celebrities' English wasn't up to standard. Many celebrities would rather miss the opportunity to interact with the big shots than embarrass themselves at the Fashion Week. Fashion Week was an important arena of Fashion Week. Other than watching the shows, taking photos, and taking street photos, there was also the brand dinner. At this time, Yun Shishir, the top student in Campus Bell, learned English in her 4 years of university hard work. Chapter 1458. Lin Ji's face darkened. The thought of Yun Shishir stealing the limelight at the Fashion Week made her so angry that she wanted to smash her phone. The show was about to start. Lin Ji had no choice but to look around and find a large chibi doll of the Empress Dowager. She reluctantly took a photo with it to prove her presence at the Fashion Week. Yun Shishir and Qin Zhou arrived at the venue and prepared to sit down under the arrangement of the brand's public relations team. Lin Ji's seat was in the front row of the show's VIP section. However, when Yun Shishir walked to her seat, she found a problem. Her seat was taken by someone else. It was a very familiar face. Li Mingqi, an international supermodel and the previous spokesperson of Louis Vuitton. Yun Shishir was stunned. She thought she had gone to the wrong seat, but after looking around, she was sure that her seat was taken. The VIP section of the show was a symbol of status. Now, all the major brands knew that the mainland was the future of all luxury goods. Pleasing the female stars from China was an important part of their public relations activities. It was definitely a glorious thing to be able to sit in the front row of the show. Many female stars wanted to steal the limelight, but not everyone could. Sitting in the front row and sitting next to each other became a bargaining chip for all the female celebrities to compete with. For example, being able to sit with a Hollywood superstar was definitely a symbol of infinite dignity. The seat next to Anna, the editor-in-chief of the American version of Vogue, also attracted attention. However, some people couldn't get the seat, so they came up with despicable tricks. For example, They rushed to the show early, tore off the paper with the stars' names on it, and sat down themselves. When the real celebrities entered the venue, they found that there was another person in their seat. When the lights dimmed and the show was about to start, they couldn't say anything and could only squeeze in. Li Mingqi must have arrived early. When she saw the name Yun Shishir on the front row, she felt strange. She tore it off without hesitation and sat down with a clear conscience. Yun Shishir said politely, "Hello, this is my seat." However, Li Mingqi didn't seem to hear what she said. Her eyes were still looking straight ahead, treating her like air. Yun Shishir reminded her again, "Miss, you're sitting in my seat. Could you please move aside?" She raised her voice slightly. Seeing that Li Mingqi was still ignoring her, Yun Shishir spoke again in English. He raised his voice slightly, attracting the attention of the surrounding people, who all looked over. Only then did Li Mingqi raise her head, but she asked in a neutral tone, "This is your seat, but I don't see your name written on it." The mockery in his words was obvious. Yun Shishir was speechless. Obviously, Li Mingqi didn't know her. She was an international supermodel and had been developing her career on the runway overseas all year round. This time, because of her schedule, she didn't manage to get an invitation letter. Therefore, she rushed to the show early and occupied a seat. She saw that the name Yun Shishir next to Han Yuyen was a little unfamiliar, so she tore it off without thinking. Chapter 1459. Milan Fashion Week was a strict fashion show. The brand's PR team would check the seats before the show started and invite the celebrities to their own seats. Li Mingqi panicked when she heard that. She thought that this newcomer would be easy to bully, but she didn't expect that this person's attitude would be so strong. He didn't back down at all and didn't intend to give her any face. Her exquisitely made-up face immediately darkened. She felt uneasy when Yun Shishir said that she was going to ask the brand's PR team to check the seats. This was Milan Fashion Week, a place where big shots and celebrities gathered. You win. Li Mingqi wasn't stupid enough to embarrass herself in such an occasion. She glared at Yun Shishir with her sharp eyes but pretended to be reserved. She stood up and walked away without saying a word. Yun Shishir rolled her eyes in her heart. There were so many shameless people. Another one popped up after she beat one. How could there be so many shameless people? There was Lin Ji and now there was Li Mingqi. She didn't know how many disgusting faces she would have to face in the next few days. Yun Shishir sat down. Before the show started, the big shots entered the venue. Han Yuyen and Gu Xingze arrived one after the other. As Louis Vuitton's brand partner, Han Yuyen was dressed luxuriously and looked domineering. Gu Xingze was Louis Vuitton's only brand ambassador in Greater China. His seat was arranged to be on the right of Yun Shishir. When Gu Xingze arrived, he saw Yun Shishir in her gown. His expectant eyes turned cold as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over them. He sat down beside her and sized her up silently. Yun Shishir smiled and nodded at him. Gu Xingze couldn't help but ask softly, "Shishir, don't you like the gown I gave you?" Yun Shishir was slightly stunned. She said apologetically, "Qin Zhou liked this gown and wanted me to walk the red carpet. I'll wear the dress you gave me at the banquet." The more he spoke, the dimmer Gu Xingze's eyes became. He shook his head and whispered, It's fine. There's no need to explain. You do look beautiful in this dress." However, even though he said that, the loneliness on his face could not be concealed. Yun Shishir couldn't help but feel a little guilty. She whispered, "I'm sorry. I've let you down." "It's okay, you don't have to apologize." Gu Xingze smiled. Seeing that her hair was a little messy, he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. This intimate act attracted the attention of many spotlights. When Han Yuyen arrived, she was also deeply shocked by Yun Shishir's classical and gorgeous gown. So beautiful, she was so beautiful that people couldn't help but feel ashamed of their inferiority. Even though she was dressed very elegantly today, compared to Yun Shishir, she paled in comparison. Seeing this, in order to avoid being compared with Yun Shishir, she switched places with her friend. This was where she couldn't compare to Han Yuyan. In this aspect, Han Yuyan knew when to advance and when to retreat. She wasn't stupid enough to be in the same frame with someone who would steal her limelight. That was a big taboo. She wouldn't give Yun Shishir the chance to do so. Chapter 1460. The show was short. It ended in about 10 minutes. After the show, with Qin Zhou's warning, she struggled to maintain her elegant look. She felt physically and mentally exhausted. After the show ended, Yun Shishir was dragged by Qin Zhou to take the top photographer from the country to the street shoot. As an artist directly invited by the brand's public relations department would arrange for 1 or 2 magazines to shoot the cover of the new fashion show this year. The artists invited by the media would also be responsible for a series of street shoots. For a star like Lin Ji, even if she didn't have such planned work to do, the reporters from all over the world who had been waiting at the entrance of the show could help increase her exposure. At the end of the day, Yun Shishir was so tired that she was about to collapse. She rarely wore high heels. Hence, when she went back to her room and took off her high heels, her heels were already red and swollen with blisters. She gently rubbed her heels and grimaced in pain. What a sin! In the past, when she saw celebrities rushing to the front page of the Fashion Week, it seemed glamorous, but she didn't know that there was so much blood and tears behind it. It wasn't easy for everyone. Yun Shishir sighed in her heart. Qin Zhou stood at the door and gave her a concise summary of tomorrow's draft. He told her to rest early and left. Lastly, he didn't forget to warn her that she could only have a piece of bread for dinner. Yun Shishir felt miserable. She dragged the heavy gift and hung it in the closet. Then, she plunged into the bathroom and soaked in the bathtub. The moment her body was immersed in the warm water, she sighed contentedly and fell limp. It's so comfortable. After a hard day's work, taking a bath was one of life's greatest pleasures. She dripped a few drops of rose essential oil and then started to soak in the bath comfortably. As she soaked, she was so tired that she fell asleep in the bathtub. Yun Shishir was awakened by the rapid and irritating sound of the doorbell. She woke up abruptly and opened her eyes. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The doorbell was still ringing. Over and over again, she didn't get tired of it. Who is it? Qin Zhou. Yun Shishir furrowed her brows. She had some doubts in her heart. She got out of the bathtub, washed off the foam on her body, put on a bathrobe, and walked into the living room. The doorbell was still ringing. However, gradually, the person outside the door seemed to have lost his patience and became increasingly anxious and hurried. Yun Shishir was so nervous that she tightened her clothes. Who could it be? It couldn't be Qin Zhou. After she came to her senses, she suddenly recalled Qin Zhou's warning. If you're alone in a hotel, no matter who rings the doorbell, don't open the door. If I need you for anything, I'll call you first. My assistant is right next to you. If you need anything, just call her number. You have to remember that this is not within the country, but overseas. Public security overseas was not as good as in China. Violent incidents often occurred in hotels. Also, as a public figure, you have to know how to protect yourself. Therefore, before doing anything, he had to first confirm his own safety. No matter who rings the doorbell, don't open the door, just in case. She immediately found her phone and wanted to call Qin Zhou to confirm. His phone had run out of battery and shut down automatically. It would take 15 minutes to charge it. Yun Shishir sat in the living room and looked in the direction of the door. She didn't dare to move for a long time. Chapter 1461. She remembered Qin Zhou's instructions and did not dare to open the door for strangers. After a long time, there was no movement outside the door. Yun Shishir walked to the door and suddenly found a peephole on the door. She opened it and looked outside, only to see an empty corridor. Could it be a waiter? She shrugged and returned to the sofa. Her phone was already charged and turned on. She logged into WeChat, found Qin Zhou, and sent a few messages. Someone was ringing the doorbell crazily just now. It was so scary. TAT, could there be perverts in this hotel? Boss Qin, I'm so scared. I'm so scared that a bad uncle will come and kidnap me. Being overseas, the signal was a little slow. It took a long time for the message to be sent. Yun Shishir complained about the broken network in the hotel. After a while, Qin Zhou replied. Did you open the door? Yun Shishir replied, no, didn't you tell me not to open the door no matter who it was? I've always followed your instructions. Qin Zhou, then, he replied with an eye-rolling emoji. Are you still ringing the doorbell? Yun Shishir replied, no, I just walked to the door and looked through the peephole. There was no one outside. After waiting for a few seconds, Qin Zhou replied, don't open the door. Protect yourself. If there's anything, I'll call you. Yun Shishir replied with a smile, okay. After a while, Qin Zhou suddenly sent another message. Yun Shishir, you're walking the red carpet at the banquet tomorrow. Who are you going with? Yun Shishir fell silent. I'm going alone. Qin Zhou rolled his eyes again. Are you crazy? You're actually saying that you're going alone at such an important event. You're a newcomer walking the red carpet. You can't hold up the atmosphere. Yun Shishir, did she have a choice? Other than walking the red carpet alone, who else could she pull? She was unfamiliar with this place. Qin Zhou replied, you're walking with Xingzhe at the banquet tomorrow. Yun Shishir was confused. Didn't Xingzhe have a date? Qin Zhou heartlessly said, her female companion was kicked out by me at the last moment. Yun Shishir was confused again. Boss Qin, you're so domineering. Qin Zhou said matter-of-factly, isn't that nonsense? Xingzhe is an artist that I used to manage. With his resources, it's just a matter of words for me to get them. Make some preparations tomorrow. You must control your aura and suppress the crowd. There will be local media present at the scene. When the time comes, I will get them to give you the headlines. Yun Shishir, Qin Zhou, point. What point? Wash up and go to bed early. I'll wake you up on time tomorrow morning. Yun Shishir raised her hands in surrender. Fine. I'm going to sleep. Qin Zhou, good night. Yun Shishir, good night. Yun Shishir put down her phone and walked to the bathroom. She picked up the hairdryer and began to dry her hair strand by strand. Her hair was very long and plentiful. If she tied it into a bundle, it would be a little difficult for her to hold it with one hand. Mushi often told her that she was envious of her beautiful black hair. She even kept saying that with long hair like hers, when she became famous in the future, she would not need any post-production to take on those shampoo and conditioner commercials. She would be as smooth and beautiful as her hair. Yun Shishir only smiled when she heard that. She had inherited Mu Qingqing's hair. When she was young, she still remembered that her mother also had a head of smooth black hair. After washing her hair, she would often sit by the bed and comb it over and over again. That scene was really beautiful. Chapter 1462. The noise from the hairdryer was very loud. She brushed her hair with one hand and held the hairdryer with the other. However, from the corner of her eye, she saw a shadow flash past the door from the mirror. Startled, she quickly turned around and looked in the direction where she had caught a glimpse of the shadow earlier. At this moment, there was no one. It was as if what she saw was just an illusion. However, could it be an illusion? Her vision was well protected. How could she have seen wrongly? She clearly saw a shadow flash past. Yun Shusher's heart skipped a beat. She was still in shock. The door was closed properly. How could someone come in? The hotel's door required a card to be swiped to enter. Unless it was the hotel's management staff who had a backup card, no one could enter. Who's there? She yelled loudly. However, there was no response. Yun Shusher clenched her fists nervously. She walked out of the bathroom and scanned the huge living room with a bewildered gaze. However, there was no suspicious trace at all. She was staying in the hotel's luxurious suite. Other than the bedroom, there was also a living room. However, there was no one here. Could it be that her eyes were really playing tricks on her? Yun Shusher frowned tiredly. Perhaps she was too tired. These few days, her schedule was packed to the brim. There was not much space for her to rest. She was probably too tired, so her eyes were playing tricks on her. Thinking of this, she calmed down. She returned to the bathroom and dried her hair. She tied the knot on her bathrobe and walked to the bedroom. Just as she pushed the bedroom door open, a cold wind blew in through the window. She was stunned and couldn't help but frown. Why was the window open? She remembered that she had closed the window and drawn the curtains. Now, the window was wide open. Because the hotel was on a higher floor, the wind kept blowing in from the window, causing the curtains to flutter. Yun Shusher looked puzzled for a moment. She walked over and closed the window and the curtains. In an instant, the room returned to a dead silence. She was acutely aware that she was not alone in the room. Her whole body froze and her heart was beating like thunder. Yun Shusher bit her lips tightly. Her frozen body was unable to move. Her awareness had always been sharper than others. Just now, the wind outside the window was whistling. However, after the window and door were closed, the huge bedroom suddenly became quiet. Hence, she could clearly sense that there was another unfamiliar presence in the room. This person's aura was terrifyingly aggressive, like a ferocious beast that had its eyes on its prey. She could even feel that the pair of eyes that were fixed on her back covetously, as if they wanted to burn through her back. Who? Yun Shusher's eyes. She didn't even have time to turn to defend herself. A's eyes, she saw a tall figure's close was approaching her. She could see his faces. Bams! A powerful body pressed down on her. He pressed her firmly against the cold floor-to-ceiling window. Ah! Chapter 1463. Let go. Let go of me, Yun Shusher started to struggle violently. The man behind her suddenly lowered his body and lifted up the corner of her bathrobe roughly. That scorching sensation, along with a hint of anger, penetrated her in an instant. The force was so strong that it could not wait to penetrate her. Ah, the penetration, which was filled with anger, almost made her scream. Yun Shusher was shocked. However, in the next second, she smelled a familiar fragrance. She was suddenly startled awake. Just who was this familiar and enchanting fragrance coming from? Muyaja. She turned her head. However, before she could look up, the man lowered his head and sealed her lips fiercely. He entered her and took possession of her. With her lips in his breath connected with hers intimately. He let out a low sigh of satisfaction. Yun Shusher widened her eyes. With the faint moonlight shining in from the window, she saw the handsome face of the man in front of her. Muyaja's eyes, which were filled with anger, landed firmly on her face. However, this pair of eyes seemed to be slightly sharp. How could it be him? Yun Shusher was shocked at first. However, when she noticed the sharp anger in his eyes, she felt even more depressed. He seemed to be angry. However, he did not give her much space to think. He held her tightly in his arms and took possession of her. He was fierce and urgent. She could not help but fall into a romantic atmosphere. The room was filled with the ambiguous atmosphere of love. Muyaja wanted her. He was going crazy. How long had it been since he had sex with her? He could no longer remember. He only remembered how much he wanted to smash his computer when he saw the reality show, The Love Diary. When he thought of his woman, in the show, in front of the camera, with a shy smile on her face and a spoon in her hand, feeding another man, he had nowhere to vent his anger. When he found out that she was going to attend the Milan Fashion Week, he specially ordered his assistant to pick a gown from the Louis Vuitton headquarters and send it to her. However, she did not wear it. Instead, she wore another revealing gown. His anger was hard to quell. Could it be that this woman didn't know that he had never allowed anyone else to witness her beauty? Everything about her, be it beauty or sweetness, should be enjoyed by him alone. However, she had displayed her beauty in front of everyone other than him. He was very angry. He found out which hotel she was staying at and pressed the doorbell. No one opened the door for a long time. At that instant, his heart was filled with anxiety. He thought she was in some kind of danger. Or perhaps, he had encountered some inhuman unspoken rules. Perhaps she was inexperienced, so she didn't know the depth of Fashion Week. He knew the unspoken rules of Fashion Week like the back of his hand. In the past, he had received invitations to attend several Fashion Weeks. Many of the guests attending the Fashion Week were celebrities from all walks of life. Some artists would send themselves to the hotels where these celebrities were staying in order to advance their career. Even if some artists didn't have such awareness, some companies would still do the same. If the artist refused, he would force the issue. During the Fashion Week, there were a lot of dirty things happening in unknown corners. Chapter 1464. While she was blow-drying her hair, he sat in the room and waited for her. While he was waiting for her, she received a WeChat notification on her cell phone. Someone had sent her a message. However, the sender was Gu Xing's profile picture. Muyaja glanced at it from the corner of his eye and saw Gu Xing's name. Somehow, he unlocked the phone and read the message. He knew very well that this was her private matter. However, no matter who sent the message, he wouldn't ask about it. The only thing he hated was Gu Xing's name. Even now, he still couldn't forget the scene from that day. In one of the scenes in The Green Apple, he stood at the door and watched with his own eyes as Yunshishir held Gu Xing's face in her hands and kissed him passionately. What Yunshishir didn't know was that he was trembling with anger as he stood at the door and watched the scene unfold. He was obsessed with emotional cleanliness. Whether it was physical or spiritual, he didn't want to see her being overly intimate with anyone. His possessiveness towards her was deeply rooted in his bones. Even if it was an act, a kiss, or a hug, he wouldn't allow it. That day, he returned home early, only to see such a scene. His chest was filled with anger and he was about to explode. He tried his best to suppress his anger and didn't explode on the spot. However, Muyaja still remembered the look in his eyes when he looked at Gu Xingze. At that moment, when Gu Xingze hugged Yunshishir, there was a trace of intense struggle and agitation in his eyes. No one understood a man better than a man. Muyaja could see that Gu Xingze's love for Yunshishir was at odds with his complicated emotions. Gu Xingze acted out that scene vividly portraying Yin Dongyu's conflicting and intense emotions. However, was his acting really that good? He didn't think so. Words could deceive people, but at that moment, the emotions and longing in Gu Xingze's eyes could not deceive anyone. Others might not be able to tell, but Muyaja could tell what Gu Xingze was thinking about his woman. Gu Xingze liked her. Perhaps this feeling could no longer be described simply with the word like. His desire for her could not be hidden from him. It was more than just liking. In the first episode of The Love Diary, the scene of Gu Xingze playing the piano for her was still vivid in her mind. Yun Shishir couldn't help but cry because Gu Xingze's voice was so moving and emotional that everyone present couldn't help but cry. However, Mu Yaja knew very well that Gu Xingze had integrated his inexplicable feelings for Yun Shishir into his song. This man had to be guarded against. He opened the WeChat message and saw Gu Xingze's message, Shishir, tomorrow night on the red carpet, I'll give you 2 gowns. Can you pick one? You'll look beautiful in it. His eyes darkened at once. He was infuriated by Gu Xingze's message. He was giving her a gown too. Could it be that he still had feelings for her? He seemed to care too much about her. It even exceeded the distance that should be maintained between colleagues. What about her? Would she agree to it? Would she wear the gown he gave her on the red carpet? Damn it! His woman was being coveted by so many people. He felt very unhappy. Chapter 1465. Yun Shishir did not know what was wrong with him today. He suddenly appeared in Milan, suddenly appeared in the hotel she was staying at, and suddenly attacked her from behind. He wanted her, and he wanted her very fiercely. He carried her to the bed and did it again. For 2 whole hours, no matter how she begged for mercy, no matter how she refused, until she weakly collapsed on the bed and no longer had the strength to struggle. Tonight, he was like a youthful and ignorant 17 or 18-year-old youth who had just experienced his first taste of forbidden fruit and did not know how to control himself. It was as if he had been waiting for this moment and had endured for several long centuries. It was as if he could not hear her begging for mercy, could not feel her refusal. His mind was completely immersed in this charm and gentleness. At this moment, Yun Shishir even had the heart to die. She weakly hugged the pillow. Her heart was sullen. This man was eyeing her covetously. He clearly wanted to cripple her. What was wrong with him today? This man, on the bed, had always been like an overlord, firmly grasping the initiative, but he rarely lost control like tonight. How she wanted him to be gentler, but tonight, it was as if he had been possessed by some kind of demon. What he wanted was so ruthless. After the passion subsided, he lay beside her and looked at her. However, she could not catch her breath for a long time. After the affair, the room was like a charming and gentle land of gentleness. She lay on the bed, the white blanket covering her body and covering her lower body. Her bare and fair back was exposed to the air just like that. Mu Yaja only took one look, and his eyes immediately deepened. This woman, if placed in ancient times, would definitely be a world-destroying enchantress who bewitched the heart of the monarch. Looking from afar, the beautiful lines of her back extended all the way. Such a sexy beauty was hard to describe with words in this world. In the past, she dressed up pure and refined, like a student who had just stepped out of school. She was young and tender, as if water could be squeezed out with a pinch. However, now that she had shed those pure and innocent clothes, lying beside him, she was even more like an enchantress, extremely charming and flirtatious. She lay lazily on the bed. Her long black hair draped over the pillow, spreading out like clouds. Her eyes were half open, and she was so tired that she didn't even have the strength to lift a finger. This time, he had tormented her quite a bit. Mu Yaja lowered his eyes to look at her, as if he had lost all his strength. Only then did the anger in his heart dissipate a little. Seeing that she was exhausted, he couldn't help but feel a little heartache and blame himself. At the same time, he was a little angry at himself for not being able to control himself and torturing her to such an overdraft. Thus, he half propped himself up, slightly bowed his head, and quietly stared at her for a while before kissing her face. Her face was flushed with a seductive pink that spread from her ears all the way to her cheeks. The more he looked at her, the more his heart ached for her. His handsome face pressed down on hers, and his warm lips pressed against hers. It was as if he was comforting her, and he pecked her gently. Chapter 1466. She still couldn't stop panting, her weak moans ringing in his ears like a kitten's furry claws, scratching his heart coquettishly. Muyaja gazed at her slightly angry eyes and gently touched her pink lips. Following that, gentle kisses landed on her forehead, between her brows, and then to her smooth chin. He continued to do so as if to comfort her. Her eyelashes drooped and she didn't look at him directly, as if she was angry. When she thought about how intense they were on the bed just now and how this man used those shameful actions to possess her, she felt like she couldn't wait to crawl up and dig a hole so that she could bury her boiling hot face that was about to drip blood. The aftertaste of the affair still hadn't faded and her mind was still blank and short-circuited for a long time. He half lay on top of her and gently kissed her to comfort her. After a long while, she finally regained some of her senses, but she was still a little angry. Unbelievable. She had never thought that she could have such a crazy side in bed. When she thought about it, she felt her face become even hotter. So, ignoring his comforting words, she turned her face away and buried her burning face deep into the pillow. Muyaja still didn't let her off and kissed her ear charmingly. However, he seemed to be infatuated with her soft and fair earlobes. As his tongue gently traced the outline, his scorching hot breath took her in and played with her lips. The scorching hot breath by her ear and the intentional teasing made her feel a little unbearable. It was as if he was seducing her and wanted to confuse her. Her body was still in the aftertaste and was still very sensitive. How could she withstand his charm? Yunshushu groaned in dissatisfaction and avoided his intimacy. She tightly pursed her bright red lips and forced herself not to let out any erratic breaths. Muyaja looked at her and suddenly laughed softly. Looking at her cute and delicate appearance, for a moment, he felt that this woman was so silly that she was adorable. So much so that the anger in his stomach disappeared in a puff of smoke. As long as this woman was by his side, he would completely lose his temper. When Yunshushu heard him snickering, she became even angrier. She couldn't help but raise her head to glare at him with her flushed face. "What are you laughing at? What are you laughing at?" She glared at him with her mesmerizing eyes, a hint of coquettishness in them. Her face was still flushed from the lingering effects of their lovemaking, and there was a hint of anger in her eyes. Seeing her like this, Muyaja laughed again. He could tell that she was being shy. She was really shy. He was a little amused. This woman, it had been so long, but she was still shy. After sex, she would still show this shy and seductive look. Her skin seemed to be really thin. She also seemed to be very pure. Thinking back to what had happened just now, and how she had repeatedly begged for mercy while gasping for breath, Muyaja increasingly felt that this little woman was truly a rare and precious beauty. When he smiled, her face burned even hotter. "Stop laughing." Yunshushu couldn't help but mutter and reach out to push his shoulder. However, the strength in her hands was so pitiful. After a few pushes, the man still didn't move an inch. For a moment, she was even more annoyed. She turned her face away again and ignored him. Chapter 1467. When Muyaja saw this, he could not help but laugh. He reached out his hand and gently stroked her silky hair. He liked her jet black hair. As he stroked it, her silky hair flowed through the gaps of his fingers like spring water. It was also like high-quality brocade, glowing with an extremely healthy glow. In his heart, women should have long, silky hair. When he looked at her from afar, her silhouette should have long, silky hair that reached her waist. When she looked back with a smile, she should be extremely charming. This woman's appearance belonged to the classic style. Her charming eyes were like silk, and when she smiled, she was extremely flirtatious. With such beautiful hair, she was even more gorgeous and seductive. He could not help but laugh. With one hand, he lifted a lock of her silky hair and kissed her ear non-stop. After kissing for a while, he seemed to be engrossed in it, but he still did not know when to stop. When he pressed his lips against her ear, he smiled faintly. There was a hint of mischief in his words. "Little thing, are you shy?" Yun Shusher's face became even hotter. She buried her face in the pillow and ignored his teasing. She ignored him. Not only did Muyaja not find it boring, but he even enjoyed her shy and seductive manner even more. Reaching out, he covered her ample bosom in an instant. Yun Shusher groaned. She could not help but shrink into the corner to avoid his provocative actions. However, what kind of man was Muyaja? How could he give her such a chance? The more shy she was, the more he wanted to force her to submit obediently. In front of a woman, men probably enjoyed the process of conquering her the most. Muyaja leaned over her body. He did not shy away at all. Yun Shusher only had to look up. From the corner of her eye, she could easily see his lean and muscular body. Her face was boiling hot, but she could not help but think angrily in her heart. How could this man maintain such a good figure? Generally speaking, it should be very difficult for someone who sits in the office all day to maintain such a textbook figure, right? He also did not go to the gym often. How could he maintain such a lean and muscular figure? This was really infuriating. She thought about how she could only eat a certain amount of calories every day in order to appear beautiful in front of the camera at the fashion show. To be honest, she was really hungry. Especially after what had happened just now, her stamina had been completely drained. Now, she only felt that her stomach was almost sticking to her back from hunger. Yun Shusher felt so wrong that she wanted to cry. What happened? Muyaja furrowed his brows slightly when he saw her aggrieved look. She cried because he bullied her. Yun Shusher snorted and turned her head away, ignoring him. How could he understand her sadness? Muyaja held her small face and turned it back. What's wrong? His little face is so bitter, as if he has suffered a great grievance. Yun Shusher pouted and glared at him as if she wanted to say something. Just as she was about to open her mouth and complain, a grumbling sound came from her stomach. Goo! Her stomach groaned miserably, as if it was complaining about her heartlessness. Yun Shusher's expression froze instantly. She bit her lip in embarrassment and felt even more wronged. Muyaja looked stunned. It was obvious that he had very good hearing in this quiet room, so he had clearly heard that miserable groan. Chapter 1468. Muyaja looked at her green eyes and then looked at her lips that were constantly licking. Beside his ears, he could hear the moans coming from her stomach. Goo! This cry became even more uncontrollable. One cry after another, it sounded like it was wailing, yet it also sounded like it was bitterly begging for mercy. Coupled with Yun Shusher's extremely gloomy and conflicted expression, Muyaja felt like laughing. Pfft! He burst out laughing. Yun Shusher glared at him. What are you laughing at? Nothing. I'm laughing at your stupidity. Muyaja poked her forehead lovingly. Stupid woman, you're hungry. Don't you know how to eat? I want to eat it, too, she mumbled, feeling aggrieved. She looked like a resentful housewife who had been locked up in her room for too long. Muyaja was even more amused. He cupped her bitter little face and gently ravaged it. If you want to eat, why don't you eat? Qin Zhou won't let me eat. Yun Shusher was angry and wronged. In a fit of anger, she ruthlessly betrayed her revolutionary comrade, Qin Zhou. When Muyaja heard this, he was furious. He won't let you eat. Why won't he let you eat? Because he's afraid that if I eat, I'll have a small belly and won't be able to wear the gown at tomorrow's banquet, Yun Shusher said frankly. Qin Zhou had put in a lot of effort for her. Reality proved that it was indeed very dangerous when she tried on the gown today. If her belly had been just a little bit bigger, she wouldn't have been able to wear the gown sent by the brand. However, the gown sent by the Gong Jia seemed to be one size bigger. That was true. He had completely relied on the Gong Jia's measurements. Moreover, under Qin Zhou's training these few days, she had lost a lot of weight. When Mu Yaja heard this, he couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. What was this Qin Zhou doing? No wonder he felt that when he was holding her waist, it was barely satisfactory. She had lost a lot of weight. He even suspected that if he used a little more strength, her waist would be broken by him. You're not allowed to starve yourself, do you hear me? Mu Yaja was a little angry as he ravaged her face. You won't eat just because they don't let you. Why are you so obedient in front of others? You'll do whatever you say. Yun Shishir, stupid woman. Mu Yaja paused, stretched out his big palm, and patted her ********. Get up, eat. With that said, he picked up the bathrobe that had been thrown to the ground. He stretched his arms slightly and pulled her into his embrace. With one arm around her and the other holding the bathrobe, he began to put it on her. He had never personally dressed anyone before, so his movements were inevitably a little clumsy. Yun Shishir blushed immediately. Was this man, who was helping her put on her clothes, really that domineering Mu Yaja? Yun Shishir pursed her lips. Somehow, she felt that in his eyes, he had always treated her like a child. She looked up and saw his uncanny workmanship and handsome side profile. For a moment, she was a little mesmerized. His side profile, no matter from which angle, was handsome and perfect. This man was simply God's favorite. She even found it hard to believe that this perfect man in front of her would be the man she would hold for the rest of her life. Her man, these 4 words were enough to make her heart flutter. She didn't dare to imagine. Chapter 1469. Putting aside this man's dominance and professionalism, he seemed to be flawless. However, even though he was a little overbearing, he could be so adorable at times. In her heart, an inexplicable sense of belonging arose spontaneously. Mu Yaja suddenly turned his eyes and glanced at her. Yun Shishir felt guilty for a moment, then she regained her composure. She struggled to get up and tried to snatch the bathrobe from his hands. I'll do it myself. I'll wear it myself, you don't have to. Mu Yaja snorted coldly and slapped her hand away. Yun Shishir groaned in pain. She rubbed the back of her hand that was slightly red from his slap and glared at him angrily. This man's strength was really strong. Just a light slap and her hand was already red. I'll do it myself. She reached out her hand again unwillingly, but he didn't allow it and slapped her hand back again. I'll help you wear it. It wasn't a question, but an order. He seemed to enjoy the process of serving her. Seeing that Yun Shishir still wanted to say something, he frowned and didn't say anything more. However, he was imposing without being angry. Yun Shishir gritted her teeth and couldn't help but glare at him again. However, this glare, which she was originally glaring at him angrily, seemed a little too flirtatious in his eyes. Hence, he suddenly lowered his head and bit her lips fiercely. In the deep kiss, there was a hint of fierceness, as if he couldn't wait to swallow her alive. Under the deterrence of his gaze, no matter how wronged Yun Shishir felt, she could only obey obediently. He draped the bathrobe over her body. While serving her, he didn't forget to take the opportunity to take advantage of her. Yun Shishir was angry but didn't dare to say anything. She allowed him to do whatever he wanted. Moreover, she didn't have the strength to resist him now. After he put on the bathrobe for her, he slapped her butt again. What do you want to eat? Yun Shishir's thoughts had drifted far away. When she heard him ask, she regained her train of thought. She pondered for a moment and said, I want to eat everything. Is that okay? Muyaja, glutton. Muyaja walked into the living room and ordered an exquisite set meal. Soon, the waiter rang the doorbell and presented the set meals one after another. When Yunshusher walked out of the bedroom, she saw that in the dining room, there were 2 exquisite candlesticks on the dining table. Under the warm candlelight, there were 10 exquisite dishes on the table. She only took one look and her stomach growled again. She felt even hungrier. Creamy mushroom spaghetti, white truffle puffs, French-baked snails, filet mignon, good heavens. Yunshusher could only feel the saliva in her mouth increasing. She swallowed hard and managed to maintain her reserved posture with great difficulty, resisting the urge to pounce over. Muyaja leaned against her back and hugged her shoulders. He teased, "What's wrong? So impatient. Stupid woman, you have to be more reserved and ladylike." Yes. Yunshusher sat at the dining table. Muyaja also sat down. Both of them looked at each other. Her eyes suddenly curved into crescents as she smiled. "This is my first time enjoying a candlelight dinner." Muyaja raised his eyebrows and laughed. "This is not considered dinner anymore. Candlelight supper, try it." Muyaja rested his chin on his hand lazily and looked at her. "This is authentic Italian cuisine." The taste was not as good as in China. It was authentic. Chapter 1470. The moment Muyaja finished his sentence, she raised her fork and knife, and a gust of wind swept away the clouds. Muyaja propped his chin on his hand, looking dumbstruck. His thin lips parted slightly in surprise, but he forgot to close them. Yunshusher did not seem to notice the stunned expression on his face at this moment. Right now, she only cared about filling her stomach. She raised her fork and knife, ate a mouthful of steak, and took a mouthful of pasta. Before she could sigh in satisfaction, she swallowed a mouthful of salad. She was so hungry that she did not care about tasting the food carefully. She only wanted to fill her stomach and did not care about anything else. Muyaja was dumbstruck. His eyebrows twitched hard, and a row of black lines appeared on his face. Under his burning gaze, Yunshusher looked up and saw Muyaja's stiff expression at this moment. For a moment, she was stunned. She furrowed her eyebrows and asked in a muffled voice, "What's wrong?" Muyaja suddenly retracted his gaze and pondered for a moment. "Forgive me for being blunt. Stupid woman, the way you eat reminds me of a word." "What is it?" Yunshusher's mouth was full. Her mouth was full of food, so it was inevitable that she could not speak clearly. Muyaja sized her up again. Then, he spat out a word mercilessly, "Refugee." Yunshusher's face fell instantly. "Hey, you're not allowed to say that about me." Muyaja knocked on the table and commented sincerely, "This is the truth." Yunshusher protested innocently. "I'm really hungry. So, I can't care about anything else." Muyaja was speechless for a moment. His eyes narrowed slightly, but he could not hide his helpless smile. "You should at least pay attention to your table manners. Don't you want your image as an idol?" Yunshusher pouted and asked him instead, "Why do I need to pay attention to my image in front of you?" "Ah. Anyway, I don't have to be secretive in front of you, right?" She pouted coquettishly. While he was still in a daze, she lowered her head again and left. Muyaja stared blankly for a long time, unable to recover from her words for a long time. "In front of you, do I still need to worry about hiding anything?" Muyaja suddenly smiled. This woman, sometimes, was really annoying, but most of the time, she was so cute. How adorable. These words were extremely pleasing to the ears. He liked it when she acted coquettishly in front of him without hiding anything. It was a complete and unreserved look. This was the real her. Unlike in front of the camera, she always maintained a noble demeanor and was as elegant and perfect as a princess. In front of him, she was so straightforward. He loved this side of her. His gaze landed on her body. In this short period of time, she had swallowed another mouthful of steak. The oil stains stained her tender red lips. Watching her eat with such relish, just by looking at it, he felt like he had tasted the marrow and wanted to taste it. On her body, a feast for the eyes was vividly displayed. Even for someone like him, he couldn't help but be tempted by her. As a result, watching her eat, he also felt a little hungry. After Yunshushu finished eating, all the delicious food on the table was in her stomach. Muyaja was so shocked that he could not close his mouth. She could eat so much. He did not order a lot of food, but according to her usual appetite, she probably could not finish it all. It looked like this little thing was really hungry. Chapter 1471. What a gluttonous little kitten. At night, Yunshushu was sleeping soundly as she laid her head on his arm. However, he was still in high spirits. His large palm gently stroked her swollen belly and gently flicked it from time to time. It seemed to be bouncy. Not bad. It felt good to the touch. It was a wonderful thing in life to eat and drink to one's heart's content. Of course, the end result of eating and drinking to one's heart's content was that when Yunshushu was brought to the Louis Vuitton show by Qin Zhou the next day, she realized that the zipper was stuck at her waist when she tried on the gown. The stylist was still a little suspicious. When she was doing her makeup yesterday, she had put on the ink-style gown for Yunshushu. That gown was even tighter at the waist than this one. It was even slightly too big for her. How could it be that the zipper was stuck at her waist after just one night? It didn't make sense. Shushu's waist was clearly very thin. She tried again and tried to pull it up forcefully. However, she couldn't pull it up no matter what. At this point, the stylist didn't dare to use force anymore because the gown was extremely expensive to make. If she used too much force and something went wrong, the gown would be damaged. A gown that cost as much as 7 figures wasn't something they could afford. Yunshushu stood in front of the mirror and heard the stylist behind her say weakly, I can't pull it up. You can't pull it up. Yunshushu frowned. However, when she realized that the zipper of the gown was stuck at her waist, she felt a little guilty. Qin Zhou, who was standing outside the fitting room, heard it and asked nervously, "What's going on? What's stuck?" Yunshushu looked even more embarrassed. Was it because she ate too much at dinner last night? It couldn't be, right? It had been 10 hours since she had dinner. No matter how bad it was, she should have digested everything in one night, right? Why was the gown stuck at her waist? Qin Zhou's angry voice came from outside the fitting room. Sure, he only called out her name, but the suppressed gunpowder in his voice could not be concealed at all. Yunshushu swallowed nervously and laughed dryly. Ha! President Qin, if you have something to say, please. I remember that with your size, this gown will definitely fit you. Yunshushu felt so guilty that she didn't say anything. What happened? Yunshushu looked up at the sky, so nervous that she broke out in cold sweat. Qin Zhou leaned against the door and his sinister voice drifted into her ears. Don't tell me, you ate something last night. At this moment, Qin Zhou's expression was as serious as a judge of the Azura Palace. Yunshushu was so scared that she broke out in a cold sweat. She hesitated for a long time before she mumbled, I ate a little. You ate a little. Qin Zhou obviously doubted her words. Yunshushu corrected her again, a little more than a little. How much did he eat? Qin Zhou was a little angry and questioned her sternly. Yunshushu was so scared that she confessed everything. I ate steak, salad, pasta, white truffle puffs. Qin Zhou's expression was stiff and cold. After Yunshushu finished speaking in one breath, she felt that the huge studio fell into a dead silence. Why didn't you eat more? Why don't you just stuff yourself to death? Yun Shishir pursed her lips and pretended to be dead. Chapter 1472. Now you're pretending to be mute. Your mouth must have been wide open when you were eating, right? Yun Shishir, damn, this Qin Zhou was really vicious with his words. Yun Shishir was embarrassed for a moment before she said helplessly, Master Qin Zhou, I was really too hungry. Too hungry. Qin Zhou raised his eyebrows and said in an unfriendly tone. Yes, so I couldn't hold it in. Qin Zhou questioned again, couldn't hold it in. Because I haven't eaten for a few days. So you ate and drank so much the night before the red carpet that you burst your stomach, Qin Zhou mocked mercilessly. Yun Shishir said in an aggrieved tone, I know I was wrong. I'm sorry, Mwax. Mwax your head. Qin Zhou exploded. What's the use of apologizing to me? You're about to go to the show. Originally, you should be in front of Louis Vuitton's executives in 2 hours, showing off your noble and elegant temperament to your heart's content. But now you're in the fitting room, stuck in the zipper of your gown. Ha! You don't know how to control yourself at all. I clearly told you to bear with it for the next 2 days, but you ended up eating like this. If you appear in front of Louis Vuitton's executives with a bulging stomach, what would they think? Yun Shishir, Qin Zhou snorted. Louis Vuitton is looking for brand ambassadors. They have to be beautiful and have a great figure. But what about you? Do you think this is a pregnant woman's red carpet show? Yun Shishir said in a sobbing tone, it's not that exaggerated. The stylist couldn't take it anymore. She walked out of the fitting room and comforted Qin Zhou. CEO Qin, it's useless to be angry at Shishir now. Why don't we think of a way? I brought a corset. Why don't we put a corset on Shishir? She might be able to wear the gown then. There were pros and cons to a corset. The pros were that with a corset, one could tighten the waist and wear the gown. The cons were that a corset was harmful to the body. Moreover, with a corset added to the gown, one would inevitably look a little bloated. Therefore, the corset had to be tighter than normal. This person was going to suffer a little. Yun Shishir's face fell when she heard that she had to wear a girdle. Qin Zhou crossed his arms. His expression was unfriendly, but he didn't say a word. The stylist carefully probed, what do you mean? What else can we do? Qin Zhou said unhappily, what time is it now? There's not much time left. Hurry up and bring the girdle over. Yes. The stylist took the girdle and put it on for Yun Shishir. After a long time, the zipper was finally pulled up. However, it was Yun Shishir's first time wearing a corset. She couldn't get used to it for a while. When she walked out of the fitting room, her face was red. Obviously, she was uncomfortable because of the tight fit. Her expression was a little unnatural. Qin Zhou walked in front of her, snorted coldly and ordered, look up. Yun Shishir subconsciously looked up. Stick out your chest. Smile. Yun Shishir curved the corners of her lips. Qin Zhou crossed his arms and looked elegant and cool. He looked her up and down and then nodded with slight satisfaction. However, he still couldn't help but poke her head. You greedy little cat, who asked you to steal food? Yun Shishir looked aggrieved. See, you've suffered. Do you dare to do it again next time? Yun Shishir shook her head and looked bitter. Qin Zhou looked at her pitiful look and couldn't get angry no matter what. All right. I'll let you off today. Chapter 1473. She spent the entire afternoon checking out the fashion show, accepting media interviews, taking street shots, and shooting a magazine shoot. Her schedule was packed to the brim. Yun Shishir felt like she was going to fly like a hydrogen balloon. When they arrived in Milan, Yun Shishir had to admit that Qin Zhou had a lot of resources in his hands. In fact, compared to Lin Ji, as a newcomer, she did not have Lin Ji's fame. Even so, Qin Zhou still managed to get her a Louis Vuitton endorsement deal and even arranged a role for her in a Hollywood blockbuster. This might be a common occurrence for A-listers. But for a newcomer like her, it was really unbelievable. With such a low exposure rate, it was indeed shocking that she was able to obtain such two international resources. On the other hand, although Lin Ji was more famous than her in the country, she could only sit on the cold bench overseas. Lin Ji's manager could not compare to Qin Zhou's resources, so the pitiful Lin Ji could only grit her teeth and watch Yun Shishir bask in limitless glory. She changed into one gown after another, and the interviews came one after another without any rest. Lin Ji was so angry that her teeth were itching. How could she not be angry? She was so jealous that her eyes were about to turn red. When she arrived at the Milan fashion show, she had imagined that everything would be perfect. She would change into a beautiful gown and walk under the flashing spotlights. She would flash her elegance to her heart's content and leave her most beautiful smile on the camera. But the reality was cruel. She could only watch as Yun Shishir was constantly scrambled by the media. She stood among the crowd, waving and smiling like a high and mighty goddess, noble and elegant. Her every frown and smile attracted the media and spotlights like a flock of ducks. Compared to home, her surroundings were too cold and cheerless. The only media outlet that had interviewed her was one that she had a good relationship with in the country. What made her even angrier was that within a few minutes of the interview, as soon as they saw Yun Shishir, they walked away with their cameras, leaving her alone on the cold bench. She wished she could turn her gaze into a pair of sharp daggers and mercilessly stab holes into Yun Shishir's irksome body.